Okay, going to call the meeting to order, and we'll have a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have the roll call.
Supervisor Bozzard.
Here.
And I'm here. Treasurer Kowalski.
Here.
Trustee Woods.
Here.
Trustee Wright.
Here.
All present, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Your support.
Support.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Carried. Okay, reports, permits issued. We can all read those. The fire chief, he might be across the street. So.
I can just talk real quick about a couple things. We had a fire board meeting
Okay.
on the 13th, and we talked about a number of things. But I did, we kind of looked at a preliminary budget, which is still being filled out, but they're working on that. And we have a special meeting on the 3rd to approve the fire board budget. So just letting people know that. The other things, there was a couple questions that came out at the fire board meeting, specifically about in terms of budgets and stuff like that. There was a question about how does 425 properties contribute to the fire millage? And I didn't know if, Jeff, you knew the answer to that question?
They do not.
They do not.
The PA, that would be a decision the board could make, but at least to this point, the board has placed all PA 425 revenue in the general fund.
Yeah.
So it doesn't directly go to the fire department. However, the fire department operations, except for major equipment and trucks, which is paid from the millage, all of the other expenses of the fire department come from that same general fund.
Budget. Yeah. That's good to know. Yeah. It came up because I'm like, well, we only get so many mills because of a shared thing. And if the fire millage is 1.454, you know, like, how does that work? And so that was a question. The other question was, if the fire department, you know, like we're getting a new apparatus, a new fire engine, and let's say they sell an old truck, does that money go back into like purchasing, or does purchasing and like the fire that fire truck, does it go towards purchasing new equipment, or does that go to the like general budget? Was kind of a question that came out.
That one's a good one to answer too. That money, if the apparatus being sold was bought from the millage, then that would be placed in the restricted voted millage budget.
Okay.
If it was bought from the general fund, then the money would go back to the general fund.
Okay. Yeah, those are questions that they said, could you ask us at the next meeting? And I'm like, I will ask those. So, yeah, and then the other comments that we talked about there, two things. What kind of the big thing ahead of us is essentially looking at the millage, what are the needs, and what are we looking to do? I think right now, most of the talk is about just renewing the current millage. And I asked Jay at that time, like, hey, based off of your projected needs, because it's a 10-year period, and what, you know, the different pieces of equipment that are going to probably need to be serviced or need to be replaced over time, what does that look like, and does that match what the current millage is? And I think it does for this set of 10 years. He did the first 10 years, and he did another 10 years after that, looking at all of the equipment, and that one looks a little bit bigger, but I said that's another board to decide at that point. in thinking of it, but that was kind of the big thing that we talked about at that meeting. So, yeah, more to come. But yeah, fair.
Okay, treasurer's report.
So it's in your packet today. Significant, only real significant change in terms of our investments. Two things. One is we had one CD mature at the Marshall Community Credit Union, so I renewed that for a period of 2 years. Rates are starting to flatten out, so short-term rates and long-term rates are not that much different, at least within a 2-year period. And then I did open 2 accounts at Michigan Class, which the board approved a few months back. And I'm moving monies in and out of the tax fund to that account because you can literally move it in a day, and their interest rates are close to CD rates. So, we can get close to 4%, where at the at Michigan, at Southern Michigan, we're getting about 0.75%. So, and then the only other thing I'll mention is there's an opportunity with consumers coming into town. They're anxious to put some money in their bank, so they're offering some pretty good rates. So I may look at that as well. So. Oh, and then just one thing, for a few months, our main general fund has been kind of higher than normal and kind of fluctuating, and that's because really at this point we've been moving money into it to pay our disbursements to the other taxing authorities. But I think by next month it'll probably settle down. So, and that'll go back to being more of a stable number.
Okay. Sheriff's enhanced patrol activity we have. He's not here tonight, but his boss might be here.
I'm on our Homer Fire Board Authority for the townships. When you start talking fire stuff, I start, fire trucks and fire prices, so I know what you're saying for fire planning. So I don't know if everyone has a copy of our estimate. You do? Okay, sounds good. Let me do that. I'll do the township monthly report. It looks like Brad worked 14 hours. He had 13 traffic stops, 4 citations. He did 1 property check and 1 alarm. And he couldn't make it tonight. So I wanted to come and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the enhanced services. I think that we talked about over the last couple of years when the township has been providing, I know historically the township is providing $20,000 for traffic enforcement, and that was specifically for overtime use. We were able to sidestep the overtime and get more hours for the township by using a part-time deputy. And we're dealing with our collective bargaining and the union and stuff, and they allowed us to do that. So that really, I'm guessing, probably doubled the time that the deputy was in the township. So that helped quite a bit and saved money and time for the township. So I always stop by, and I've talked to a couple of you, and I've talked to some residents. I know a lot of residents are very happy seeing the extra enhanced patrol and the deputy in there. And I will tell you this, we are there. We will always be there. We'll respond to calls. We'll do things, but we could have never provided the enhanced, specific, targeted requests that you had for Brad without having that funding for from the township. We just right now, for instance, besides our contracts, I think we have 2 deputies and a supervisor on for out-county patrol that would be responding to Marshall Township, and then we have several different contracts. So I always I gave you an estimated cost, and I do not get a new toaster for this. Okay, if no new awards, no pay increases. My job from the citizens is to look at some of the potential down the road, what we're looking at for law enforcement services and the growth in some of our communities. Statistically, besides some of our contracted services such as the city of Springfield and Penfield, Sheridan and Marshall have always been traditionally our busier townships. And now with the growth in Marshall Township, I expect that, I don't think that line of busy is going to go down. It is skyrocketing. So I'm here to give you a number to consider for a full-time deputy. And this is similar. We have one in Sheridan. We have one in Convis. We have three in the Homer Village. We have 9 in Springfield, 9 in Penfield. And then we're contracted with multiple schools. So in my mind, how this works is it really gives the advantage to local governments or schools because it takes all of the administrative work off of having your own police department. If you want a one-person police department, you don't have to deal with you don't have to deal with the HR, you don't have to deal with the collective bargaining, you don't have to deal with the training, the new Commission on Law Enforcement standards of training that has just skyrocketed. We do all that, and you have your police officer that is assigned to you. I'll give you the example in Sheridan Township. Jack Williamson is in Sheridan. He's full-time. They pay for the deputy. They pay for the deputy's car. It can say Sheridan on the side of the car if you want that if they want it to say the side. It's their car. It's their deputy. We handle the administrative side. But what do I get out of it? I get a deputy on the road in a community that is growing, and we're able to serve the citizens. So that's my benefit from it. And so I've given you the estimated cost of a 5-year agreement with a deputy. We do have, and I apologize, I emailed a bunch of stuff and it bounced back from the town. It bounces back. And I think what's happening, we were talking about it today, I think the Excel document is so large that I think it's being blocked by the township. So I will bring you the contract, I'll bring you all the documents and hand deliver, or we'll figure out a way to get it to you. But I apologize. I've emailed it a couple of times and it keeps getting bounced back and I can't figure out why. So we'll get to the bottom of that. But this is the enhanced agreement. And like I said, it's really what you want it to be. The deputy can go with your township enforcement zoning officer on calls. The deputy can have an office right here in your township and be here 40 hours a week or 84 hours every 2 weeks, whatever is agreed upon. But that really is it's a good opportunity for both the county and the citizens, and for my office to be able to put somebody out there. So, you guys have any questions you can think of?
Maybe just one general question. So, your budget from the sheriff's department comes from the county commission, is that correct?
That's correct.
So if they're seeing increased revenue, let's say from solar or whatever, does some of that translate into increase in your budget, and are you able to hire additional officers or not?
Yeah, so yes and no. So I think the problem overall, my budget is increasing so much. For instance, we went from a medical at around a $3 million cost for medical. We jumped to $5 million. Our food costs, we are increasing so rapidly that the county can't keep up with it. Luckily, we have those offset boarding costs. So we board for several different boarding. Luckily, those costs are there and they offset. They come close to offsetting some of those costs and some of those increases. But we are just, I could be here all day because I can feel my complaining mode in the back of my mind. I'm gonna say I can start a preaching session up here, but the costs are just increasing so drastically that we can hardly keep up with that. So if there is specific increases in some of the revenue, I'd love that to be there. I need a few more corrections officers. I do need some road patrol deputies on the road, but we just certainly don't know what that looks like. So that's why I'm in a position to come to the township and say, listen, if you want somebody specific assigned to you as an enhanced enforcement. I had an old sheriff tell me, and this is probably a terrible way to look at it. You may remember who he is, but he said, it's kind of like when you buy a car. if you want the extra, if you want the power windows and you want the sunroof to open and all the other gadgets, we can't afford, I can give you the car, I just can't give you all the gadgets, and I can't give you that specific person for the township that I think you need, so. I'll tell that sheriff I told that story, so, yes.
So harking back to some of my older days, or younger days, I guess, would be the best. There's always an argument with regard to the county's obligation to provide actual patrols, funding for patrol services
Yeah.
For the sheriff's department. I suspect that's still a continuing,
Well,
it's
it's kind of an interesting night.
still there.
You're gonna really get me going. So, constitutionally, the interesting thing about sheriffs is, number one, we're the only elected office, right? We answer to the people of the community. And the other side of this too, constitutionally, there's some kind of clicky words in there. The sheriff has to run a jail and they also have to investigate crimes. Don't quote me on that specifically. So the question's always been, investigate crimes. Does that require a road patrol to be mandated services for a community? And I'm not sure, as a sheriff, what do you think I'm going to say? I'm going to say, yeah, that mandates that we have patrol services. And then on the other side of this, there could be another governing body that says, no, we don't think that requires that. There hasn't been a real good, solid answer to that. In my opinion, my thought is, as a sheriff, if this goes all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court, I'm not sure if I want to hear their decision, and the other government source probably thinks the same thing. Neither one of us want a definite answer on that. But right now, I mean, we've had good county boards. We've had good support. I think we all realize that we need law enforcement services. I mean, other counties that aren't as fortunate, they've ran into some definite snags. But I'm not sure the answer for that is, should our sheriff road patrol services mandated? Well, I think they are. I think the Constitution says they are, but who knows?
Well, getting down to the practicality of
Yes.
it as opposed to the legality of it.
Yeah.
On average, how many officers are patrolling on the shift?
Well,
Sheriff's officers.
yeah, so usually, out county patrol is at 2 with a supervisor. Now, we have contracts, but those contracts, so let me give you a bigger picture. So during day shift, you'd have a deputy on probably in Lee, Canvas, Homer, 2 in Penfield, 2 in Springfield, 1 at Marshall School, 1 at the ISD, 1 at Doris Clausen, and I know I've got 1 more in there somewhere, okay? So scratch all those contracts away. Who's patrolling in the county?
Yeah.
Probably 2 deputies with 1 supervisor, and the supervisor manages all of that and could be in Springfield roaming around. So on night shift, right now, it's after 7, you'll have 2 deputies on, and they'll go from Duck Lake and they cover all the contracts where there's no one on. They'll go from Duck Lake to Athens, and they'll cover that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the real reason for my other question about whether you're required to have them or not is, I think Eaton County was one of the more recent ones I read where they were talking about, and maybe they did it, getting rid of a whole shift. Mm-hmm. So in essence, if you lived out in the area like we do, an unincorporated area, then all there was the state police, who might have 1 car for multiple counties.
Yeah, so we have a great relationship. So we're all in the same building.
Right.
And years ago, I know, 30 years ago, I'll talk 30 years ago. It's kind of like, you ever been to a job where you kind of compete, right? Everybody's got their own silo and you're competing, you're better. We're all in the same building and we all work fabulous together. There's all the walls, our detective bureau that works together. We go out and we solve crime, and we do it because that's what we need to do. It's such a great concept. It's one of the only concepts. So we work great with MSP. I know MSP covers 3 counties. We work together. When we go off on training, MSP covers. When MSP goes off on training, we cover. It's just easier to put all your people in training in a 1-day period and have somebody else cover the county. So we've got a real good relationship with them. But I will tell you, everyone's short. We're short. We had a couple people recently, a couple of deputies. They just want to go home to where wife is from. And so all of a sudden, we're fully staffed and things are good. And I got to tell you, Monday, every day is Monday in my office. And Monday comes around and, you're feeling good about things and Monday hits and next thing you know, you're short again. The only reason, right now, our budget is approved. The only reason we would reduce a night shift patrol or reduce it is just because of simple people. Today, we're starting to move people around because we've had a couple people say, hey, listen, we're going to leave and it's all for the right reasons. They're not happy. It's just that their life has changed. As soon as that happens, we've got people off on illness. We've got people off that were injured. It's a tricky, it is not like it was 10 years ago. It's tricky.
Two questions. The first question is, let's say we were to go down this road and get a full-time deputy in our township. Yeah, I threw it up there for you.
Why don't you guys point and say,
Sorry, I
"Chief,
should
it's
have said that.
Yeah.
And so my question is, with what's currently being patrolled and how it's been patrolled, would that patrol, because we have someone now stationed here, would that other service or additional people wouldn't come through this area, or?
Oh, the regular patrol would
Yeah.
still be here.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
That was one question. I
Yep.
didn't want it to be and then we don't get any services there. The other question I had was just in terms of timing of this estimated cost, when would you need to know a decision on something like this and how, what's the lead time and that type of thing?
Sure. So I could not provide a physical deputy and probably until June or July for this service. So that's why I'm here today, to give some lead time and give you a decision. We have 3 in field training right now, and when they come out in April, then we're going to start positioning ourselves May, June, in case you folks decide to go with this contract. We'd probably be able to handle it then.
So you'd need a decision by, like you said, April, or would you, yeah.
You tell me, whenever you're ready to give me a
Okay.
decision.
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
when we have to make a decision by and such.
I would tell you by April, if you could give me an idea whether you're interested in that, it would definitely help for some additional planning.
Okay.
I have a question. Going back to the road report,
Yeah.
I've noticed over the past month and a half, there have been several incidents up here at the light.
Accidents?
At the curve.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly, I didn't want to call them accidents and stuff,
Yeah, they are.
but is there a common theme to those accidents that's going on up there?
So we talked about that last week. We talked about the difference between this intersection and this intersection. And so we've noticed that, and I don't think there's a real good answer. I think most of them, most of the hazard, the deputy marks on the UD10, the hazardous action, and it seems to be it's driving too fast for conditions. Because we were concerned, all right, is this intersection confusing? Are there not enough signs? What's the problem here? But it looks like most of the people are just driving too fast coming into the curve. But we are doing some other work with MDOT, and that is one of the questions that we're going to ask is why is that suddenly being a high traffic crash intersection there? And if that's starting to elevate this quick, what do we need to do to fix it? So it's, we had a few there, but most of them, you're right, have been right here. So especially whenever there's snow down, every briefing log says car off Old Michigan Avenue. I mean, it's quite a bit. So
Now, is it westbound or eastbound, both?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. But you're right. That's starting to pick up.
Appreciate it.
So this, just one more little, I think you referred to it a little bit earlier, but the other, like with Convis and Sheridan, do they have you do township ordinance enforcement?
So we don't. We go with the township officer, enforcement officer to do those things. Specifically, we don't necessarily, we wouldn't shy away with helping with ordinance enforcement, but most of the time the township has somebody that is doing their ordinances. The problem that we're seeing in a lot of the communities is the ordinance enforcement officer is in a position where it's like, you don't want to go to these properties alone anymore. It's hard to go out to this house without some type of police authority. So that's where Sheridan, I mean, I think he's working with him every day. They're cleaning up properties and doing quite a bit of stuff. But the other side to this too, especially with the zoning and the ordinances, most of the township zoning and ordinance is more educated in those areas, specifically from a deputy. So usually the deputy just goes and stands by. But I know we do help with some of the administrative search warrants through your attorney. So when the township officer is involved in a situation, you know this, is involved in a situation where they need to inspect the property, they have to get an administrative search warrant to do that. And I know that we've helped out with those before in Sheridan.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning Commission.
Okay, just a couple of things this evening. The Planning Commission began its master plan review. They're meeting this month. We have a second meeting this coming Thursday to finish up, hopefully, made about through the first 3 chapters of the master plan, and hopefully be able to finish that up this next Thursday. We got at least 2 meetings scheduled for February. That includes an open hearing also. Mass notification system, there are 49 subscribers at this point. Map update, guess still trying to finalize the last few details on it. Nothing's really changed that I've seen or heard over the last couple of weeks since the first of the month when the PC had their meeting. We're close, so. And as far as the JPC, Joint Planning Commission, they approved the special land use permit for Dunkin' Donuts and Jimmy John's, and also the site plan with provisions. And most of those provisions deal with landscaping. So seems like everything's moving on that one. So
Okay.
that's all I have.
Well, I guess you're up again, road department, road commission.
The only thing that I have seen on or heard on the road department is they sent a question to Jeff to see if we'd be able to pony up the funds for all of the projects. And Jeff sent them back a resounding yes, and I haven't seen anything else since then. So,
Right.
unless somebody else has heard something.
So, I don't know, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Okay. So that was one of the questions I had is when does the county decide if they have enough money to fund all the projects that they've been asked? You know, because it's kind of a mixed bag. You have townships like us that are, you know, kind of a la carte, and then you've got, you know, Emmett and Penfield that, you know, have road millages. So did they give you when do they tell us which projects they're gonna fund? Because I assume that's the reason they wanted them prioritized, right? Is because if they run out of money, number 5 doesn't make it, which, as I recall, was Kesselwood. It was the $400,000 one or something.
Being as this is my first go through with these guys on this type of subject, you know, I'll defer back to the previous guys if they have any information on it.
Farrell's back there, he's in charge of it.
Sure.
Pick up the podium, do you mind? Thanks.
Good evening, Doug Farrell, Assistant County Administrator for the County Road Departments. It falls under my leadership. Yeah, so we should be able to take those to the Board of Commissioners in late February. I don't have the meeting date on the top of my mind, but I think the plan right now is to take those to the second February meeting. You know, the recommendation We're still waiting from the state to see how all this new money's coming through. That's kind of the big thing we're waiting on. I know internally, we're trying to do everything we can to fund everything that was submitted. But we're still kind of learning from the state. The state's still learning themselves on how and when all of this new money's going to trickle through. I can say we were ecstatic with the projects you submitted. They're very strong projects. I know there's some in there that you've been waiting a long time to do, so very excited to see it. That's why we sent that email. We were like, wow, that's a lot. We want to make sure that what you submitted was what you wanted, and that if all these get approved, that we're good to move ahead. So the normal process is it would go to the Board of Commissioners, and I should say even before then, we'd set up a meeting at the end of February for townships to come where we can announce those. But if you're paying attention, you'll see it go to the board even before then, because we need to make sure our board supports it before we announce it to you. So you can pay attention to our agendas or shoot us an email. We'd be happy to keep you informed.
While you're up there, could I ask a couple questions? So one of the things we talked about is trying to, I guess a couple things do. One is do better long-range planning with you guys using I can never remember, Pacer ratings. And the one thing that was kind of missing, the Pacer ratings are good, but sometimes they're difficult. You can't visualize, right? And so there used to be a map that showed that same thing in colors. And I think the last one I saw was like 2020. Is that something that you think the road department can help us with?
Yeah.
For Marshall Township, we could have that map updated, because I think that would really help us as, look at it visually and get an idea of traffic and that type of thing.
Definitely. I'll have to reach out to our engineering department, make sure, what you're looking for and what was done back then. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely a normal thing we do with many townships is help them work through that long range planning, because there's a lot of responsibility on townships as well as the county to do this right. So yeah, I can, I'll make sure to have our engineering department reach out to you probably this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, PA 425 subcommittee.
So maybe I'll just start, and Wayne, you can chime in, but the focus right now is really to set up as many meetings as is needed, but I'll say right now we're thinking 2 meetings that would focus on both the water franchise agreement and or some alternative, and looking at the 425 master agreement. And the reason I say that is because the city has kind of said, well, we're not in a position where we're going to sign up to the JPC being other than advisory. And of course, our position is that it has sole authority. The board made that movement in our amicus brief that we filed. So the group kind of said, well, let's go back to the total document and see if there's another way that we can make both parties happy. So right now they were scheduled, and then they got unscheduled because Rob Thal's schedule changed. So we're still trying to schedule those.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I'd add is I think through this process, I think both parties recognize that the document isn't very clear. It needs to be clarified in that document of how it interprets and how it reads. And obviously, we want to make sure that we're at equal footing. It shouldn't benefit one over the other. And so we want to make sure that, and I think both parties are willing to sit down and meet. We were supposed to, as you said, meet on the 17th, and Rob had he couldn't do it. And so, yeah, as Glenn said, we're trying to rework and try to get a new time to meet with the city. But I think that's a good first step, is sitting down, meeting, and making sure that we're advocating for what, I I think the biggest thing that I want to make clear is this would not be happening if we didn't do the amicus brief. I think it's the clearest thing that I've seen, is the city would have never met at the table to really open up and have more dialogues about what that means without that brief. And so I think there's an urgency to get that resolved, so, which is good.
Okay. On the budget report,
As printed. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or find the answers. If things look like they're still progressing as planned, generally.
A question. So this colorful chart, is this something new, or is that part of the budget report, or? I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking at.
No, that's part of the sheriff, that was part of the sheriff's.
Okay, so that
goes with that.
that's the
Detail.
detail below
Yeah.
the other.
Of how he came up with all
Okay, I got you.
of that. Yeah.
So I did have just a couple hopefully questions. So when it comes to the canvas fire contract, is that per run, or do we get a set amount plus a run, or do we get a set amount, or?
We have a continuing contract with them, last until one of us says no. And what it does is the administrative salaries, the chief and the officer salaries are included in the operational expenses and amortized values for vehicles. And that all goes in a general operating cost. And then they have to pay a percentage of that based upon our relative percentages of SEV. They're ours for the whole township, because obviously it serves the whole township. And for Convis Township, it's the bottom 2 rows of their township. So whatever and usually it's around 20% or 22%, right around there. They pay of our base operating expenses. And then we add to that the actual payroll for each incident response in their township.
Okay, so it's kind of a combination.
Yeah, it's a combo.
Okay. So I was just making observations. It looked like, and we talked about the millage revenue. It seems like it should be going up. So that was a question mark. And then I didn't see anything under the budget for trailer fees or delinquent tax. But I don't know if that's.
Yeah, there's not a budgeted amount for those. Basically the trailer fees, because it's a really small amount.
Right.
But and for the delinquent tax, it's really the budgeted amount for the voted current, and for the fire millage is based on 100% collection.
Okay.
And so if we get any delinquent tax, it would be, it already was included in the estimate.
Okay.
But the auditors separately account for its receipt.
Right, so it'll be an actual, it's not a budget.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. And then, looked under legal consultant, we had,
That's the township attorneys
right, but it looked like we had 75,000,
budgeted.
but we're like way under.
We were for the first few months, but lately, I mean, because.
Well, I mean, to date, well, through the end of the year, right, and so we got another 3 months.
Yes.
We're at 29. So it was just an observation.
Yep.
I don't know that we have to do anything, it was just. And then under, I think you've told me this before, but under hall salaries, that's essentially Carl? Or-
That's Carl, and that's my non-statutory
Okay,
duties.
Okay.
And of Carl, it's 25% of his salary is charged to a building code compliance under administrative assistant.
oh, okay,
So that when we set the fees, we can take into account that part of his salary.
Okay, gotcha. And then like you pointed out, the budgeted items other than capital outlay, so the fire millage is strictly for capital outlay.
Right.
And all the other fire department budgeted items are carried by the township millage. And
Well, in
well, the other
township
revenues,
source, yeah.
all the other revenues, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, because the township millage wouldn't carry it that far.
right. That's all I had.
Okay. Communications, resignation of Jeff Albaugh from the zoning board of appeals, receive and approve.
Can I just ask a quick question? First, Joanna said, thank you, Jeff, for your service on that Board of Appeals. You know, you've done a lot on that, and so we just want to first say thank you for that. But she did ask a question. They would need to elect a secretary based on the vacancy. So the question is, in this interim while Jeff has resigned, like, how do notices for the meetings in February and future zoning board of appeals, how would that be handled?
Well, I timed this so it was January 31st, so I can get those notices out.
Okay.
For the February, and then then the zoning board of appeals, when it meets next, would probably designate, and probably Joanna as their acting secretary as well, until it's back to a full 3.
Thank you. And do we know who would be, do we have any idea of who would be next in that? Or no? We have to look into that more.
Well, yeah, I have to appoint him, so.
Okay.
Okay. Referrals, non-special or business, proposed Calhoun County Recycling Center, Lucy, oh,
Wait 1 second, get it out here for you. Let's go 6. Come on. It's gonna play with me here. Do this. Switch cameras. Hopefully I have the right camera looking here. There we go. Then I go here. There we go.
Hi, thanks for having us. I'm personally really glad to be here to share more about this project, answer any questions that you have, demystify this. It was important to us that we came and talked to you today. So my name, if you want to go to the next slide, my name is Lucy Huff. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Development. I'm here with my colleague, Sarah. She's the recycling coordinator for the Calhoun County Recycling Department. She's been doing this work for 13 years. She's really our expert on recycling. We also have 3 recycling aides who assist with the operations that we have. So if you want to go to the next slide. This is a little bit about our operations for our recycling department. We really focus on folks who don't have curbside recycling, so really trying to help rural residents with recycling, and then also hard to recycle materials. So we have a recycling trailer that we take to 3 communities once a month. We also have collection events at least 4 times a year for the hard to recycle materials. So that's going to be electronics, scrap metal, tires, household hazardous waste. If you hear about those, that's usually us who are doing those collections. We also have a program with the CNC landfill. This is a free program where folks can bring single stream recycling anytime that the landfill is open. And then we have our drop-off facility, which is connected to the Calhoun County Road Department. So a point that I wanted to share, just so that you guys know, is that in 2025, we saw the highest amount of recyclers and recycling in general in Calhoun County. So that is across both the CNC landfill program as well as our drop-off facility. We saw the highest amounts, not just in number of recyclers, but also in the tonnage that they're bringing. So lots of folks looking to recycle in Calhoun County. So if you want to move to the next slide. Another thing that we're working on is the materials management plan. And so keep that in mind because we are actually going to be back to discuss the materials management plan later on this year. So this is a requirement by the state. All 83 counties have to do a materials management plan. Our department's writing it on behalf of Calhoun County. And it's an amendment to Part 115 of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act that went into place in 2023. It's required that we finish our plan for Calhoun County in 2027. This year, we'll be bringing it back around to all municipalities in Calhoun County, including you guys. But I mention it related to this project for a couple reasons. One is the state overall is looking to increase recycling rates to 30% throughout the state. That means that we're looking to also increase our recycling rates in Calhoun County. And also another part of the law is that most materials, like recycling materials, will have to be covered in a certain way. And so that's relevant for what we're here to talk about. One thing I would mention is that as a part of this materials management plan, we have been doing some stakeholder outreach. And so we held 3 in-person meetings throughout the county. We also had an online survey. On our online survey, we had 166 responses. 69% of those were people who didn't have curbside recycling. So that's really who we're trying to reach, in general. 80% said that they do participate in our events. 44% said that our hours at the drop-off facility are a barrier to participate. That's hands down the thing that we hear the most is that our hours at our current facility are why folks aren't coming out more often. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we're here today to talk about our recycling drop-off facility. And so wanting to talk a little bit about why this is even coming up, and it's largely around challenges that we have with our current facility. So we are currently a part of the road department. We are literally attached to it on a concrete pad. And so that has a lot of challenges, including just that we are outdoors. So that piece about material being covered, right now we have some roll-off trailers that are out in the back, and so that's also challenging for the material, but also for our staff. They are outside for all weather as recyclers come up. It's also fairly small. We don't have much room for all of our recycling, which limits the materials that we can take, including who we're able to take materials from. So we're not able to take material from small businesses or institutions, despite we've been asked to take it in the past. And also, it's just an impediment to the road department operations and vice versa. The way that it works is that folks drive up right in front of our recycle facility, which is essentially the driveway of the road department. And so sometimes you'll see a line of cars right in front of where the road department operates. It's not super safe, which is often my concern. And because of that, we're conscious. We've kind of gotten into a flow where it sort of works. Right now, we are open 4 hours on Tuesday and 4 hours on Wednesday, but we can't really operate more than that just because of the operations of the road department as well. So that's really what limits our hours at this time. So we have a proposed new facility. So if you want to move, oh, you got it. So we have identified, we had looked at a handful of locations throughout the county, and the parcel that we are interested in is 15290 15 Mile Road in Marshall Township. And this is a former foundry. It's currently owned by the land bank. We hope to build a facility at 10,000 square foot. That is dependent on some grant funding that we're currently in the application process for, but we do have funding secured for a 6,000 square foot facility right now. Environmentals, we've been doing our due diligence with SME to learn more about is this even a viable property for us? And ultimately, we feel comfortable moving forward. We're prepared for the BEA and the phase 1 and 2 with our purchase agreement. We actually had completed a phase 1, but it expired. So we're working on doing that again. And then we also have a purchase agreement already approved by the Calhoun County Board of Commissioners. So yeah, we can move to the next one. So how will our new facility work? So the way that it will work is that it would be a drive-through facility where recyclers drive in and then they sort the material themselves. Right now, recyclers, we ask them to come to our facility pre-sorted, and that's sometimes a lot to ask, and I understand that. And so at this new facility, they would be able to sort it themselves. Bring your own recycling, and then you sort it with our staff help. We would have a much larger storage area. So that's like where the real win is for us. And we would be able to bale our material. We'd have a forklift to, have efficient storage. We would also hopefully have a foam densifier, so condensing the styrofoam down. And again, that allows us to store material much more efficiently. We would have a loading dock that allows us to load into a semi to transport material with that forklift. We would have 100, so with the tonnage of material right now, we're right about at the threshold of 100 tons. And so with a larger facility, we would definitely be higher than 100 tons. So we wanted to make sure to mention that we would be regulated by Eagle as a result of that. And then also the expanded hours. One thing I'll mention just on that last one is that, because I mentioned semis, I just thought I would share, as far as what we expect with traffic to the facility, is that we would have between 7 and 8 semis coming a year, so less than 1 a month. Okay, now move. So this is our preliminary site design, and I will walk you through this. One thing to know is that we did design this with Marshall Township's zoning for light industrial in mind, and so those standards are incorporated in this design. So here on the west side of the facility is 15 Mile, and so recyclers would come in and then they would take that south driveway around the building and then enter through the east side of the facility, and then do their business, get their recycling all settled, and then continue to drive through and then exiting out through that same driveway. You can see kind of that back area is just where the semis would be able to come. Down there, you can see where our parking is for our staff. That would be staff parking. And then another thing that I would mention too is that there's a pretty large consumer's easement that's right, like cutting across kind of this western side of the facility or the parcel. And so that kind of naturally sets our facility back a distance. And so we are set back about 361 feet from the property line on the west side. So that's the outdoor of the facility. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I think that's it. So if you want to move to the next one. So this is what the inside of the facility would look like. So you come in through that east side, and then there's 4 parking spots where folks can pull over and be able to sort their material. And then the whole north side of the facility is our storage. So baler, forklift over on the east side, all those little squares are where we would be baling the material so that we would be able to store it. And then you can see the loading dock up there. One feature of this facility that we're really excited about is the part that's on the south part down here. We would have staff area and it would be heated. Just that part would be heated, but our staff would have a place where they could have lunch or take a break. It has an office space that Sarah could use, and then a bathroom facility as well. And so I mentioned, we're in the process of applying for another Eagle grant. And so if we don't receive that, what we currently have funding for, we would kind of lob off the west side of the facility where you see the loading dock kind of straight down from there. And so we would lose 2 of the parking spots and then also that storage on the side of the facility. We plan on building as a like pole structure so that way we can add on if we find the sufficient funding. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. So, there's some really significant benefits for this facility for us. A big one is that additional capacity. And so one thing that we're excited about is that as a result of having that additional storage, we would be able to take those hard to recycle materials all year round. So tires, scrap metal, and electronics, you could bring any time. We actually hear from trash haulers that they like that because right now folks will try to throw away tires or they'll try to throw away TV screens, and then they'd be able to say like any time of the year, you can go to Calhoun County's facility. Right now it's just at those collection days that we have throughout the county. We would also have an expanded customer base, especially at that larger size. We would be able to take material from small businesses or from institutions. Harper Creek School cafeteria has said that they would like to recycle more. And then also out-of-county recyclers would be able to recycle at a fee. The small businesses as well, it would be at a small fee. But for instance, like Eaton County is reducing their recycling facility or services, and so we anticipate that we would attract folks from there. And then, some of these sort of obvious benefits is just improved efficiency for our staff. They're indoors. We have much more room to be able to store our material. Right now, it's like a puzzle. It's constantly trying to figure out where do we put things and when do we move things so that way we can have room for what we know is coming in. And so we would just be able to be much more efficient with that. And we also think recyclers will appreciate these changes. Being indoors, being able to sort themselves, and then the more hours as well. So let's go to the next slide. So this is kind of where we've been to get here today with me talking to you. So Calhoun County, our department met with your zoning administrator, Shelley Briggs, on June 27th for a pre-application meeting, and we brought these same site plan materials. On July 23rd, we were notified via email that a zoning review of this parcel would take place. And then on September 18th, a zoning board of appeals rezoned the parcel as half ag and half industrial. And so if you want to go to the next slide, for us, the next steps, we intend to apply to the township for all necessary building permits. And we intend to erect the building as a county building under the County Board of Commissioners Act, which is not subject to zoning regulations or planning commission approval. We are eager to meet with representatives from Marshall Township to make sure that we can make sure that this facility meets your expectations so we can work together to have a happy outcome for our recyclers. So if you want to go to the final slide, it's just a reiteration that, I appreciate being able to share this with you. I do have copies of this that I'll give to you. It has my card, and we're happy to keep meeting and we want to talk about this. But wanted to also just make sure that we shared with you in this setting. So what questions do you have?
Well, I can start. So I think I had dialogue, Lucy, with you and also with Matt Saxton, as you're aware, and I was really working off of this comprehensive recycling drop-off center packet, I guess. But it sounds like it's a done deal, but one of the biggest concerns I have is the location, because today it's very accessible at the road department, because essentially it's even more accessible with the improvements to the interchange and the number of lanes on Michigan Avenue. But that wasn't on, so on page 18, there was kind of like a site selection criteria, and there were the fairgrounds, Brooks, which I assume is the Brooks Industrial Park, Land Bank, which I'm not sure if that's this site.
Yeah, it
okay, and then something called Hammond. But I didn't see the actual location that you're at today. So when I look at an aerial view, there's quite a bit of land at the road department right now. So that was one of my many questions that never got answered was, why couldn't we leave it where it's at? It's an industrial road. All along that property are, towing services, collision shops, similar things, road department, with that land that's already available.
My understanding is that a lot of that land is not suitable for building. It's like wetland. And so another piece of it also is just the road department does have plans to improve their facilities. That's part of the reason even for us that we're ready to find somewhere else. But the road department has plans for their facility. It isn't really a viable option in our mind just because the road department has plenty of its own operational needs. There's plenty of discussion that's happening just specifically about the road department. It was time for us to find a new location.
So in the city of Marshall, we have several brown sites. And again, they're industrial areas, right? So, the old Eaton Foundry, the old Eaton plant, there's some additional properties there. Again, it's right off of Michigan Avenue. When I look at this site, and I gave you the details, for someone to get to this site, they're gonna have to, let's say they're trying to get there from the interstate, just because I don't know how else to describe where people are coming from. You know, they're gonna get off at Michigan Avenue off of I-69 would be one method, and then they've got to drive 3.4 miles to get to the site past residential areas. So, you know, one of the things that's nice about the sites the site you have today is that people aren't driving past homes, right? There's not a traffic issue. If you try to come off of 94, you can get off at exit 104, and it's about 5.1 miles, again, going past residential areas. Or you can get off at exit 110, which is near where I live, and then it takes you about 4.9 miles to get to this site. So this site is not readily accessible to people who want to go there. They're going to have to basically drive down a residential road several miles to get to it, where these other sites that I've mentioned are so much more accessible. And I just don't, it's mind boggling to me. And the only answer I think I've gotten is that, well, this was the land, bank's land, and so we got it for not much money, but this is a long-term facility, right? So industrial park that the city has is another location. I think that came up somewhere, well, right here. It was a higher purchase cost. But it just seems to me it's just the wrong location. But I realize, you brought all your lawyers to the ZBA meeting and they basically told us that, we have no say so. And when the county puts a building, they could put it right next to my house if they wanted to.
Respectfully, that was land bank lawyers, right? They're different from us. Also, I think that the access to the location is subjective. We are really trying to reach rural residents, and we are now in this new facility, we would be really accessible from Verona. And that's not the case right now. I do think hopefully we can serve rural residents. They might have a drive, that's the case also now. But I hear you. I think that there's a lot that goes into making a decision on a site. We have heard your suggestions. I have, thoughts here on, I hear you. I think that for us, we really do feel like the purchase price is a part of it. I mean, for us to be able, we're working from the solid waste budget. It's not a very large budget. And so to be able to get a land bank property, which is less money, is a massive deal for us to be able to build the facility that we need to operate efficiently. And, also it is about 9 acres that we end up with. The land bank did a land division with you guys, and the piece that we'll have is about 9 acres, which allows us to really be able to bring people back into the facility so that we don't stack traffic on 15 Mile. That's important to us. Whereas if we were in an industrial site where there's smaller parcels, we might end up on the road and there's traffic considerations there. So we feel that even from an operational and a flow perspective, we're going to be successful here.
A couple questions.
Yeah.
One, I will say that, and on the one slide about the zoning board of appeals, they don't get to change zoning. That's not what the zoning board of appeals can do. They can only judge based off of the documents. So I just want to make sure that's clear, because I know people who are on that board and would be remiss if that wasn't brought up, that they can't change the zoning. They can only judge what the zoning is based off of what the historical documents, and that's that split parcel of agriculture and that split zoning with industrial is the evidence that we have that parcel is. But in terms of my other question, my real question, that was a comment. My question comes to traffic in general.
Yeah.
How do you see, I guess two bits on this, semi-traffic, how are they getting in and out? Like if they're coming from, let's say, the highway, I'm just curious the route of that. And then what happens to roads in general if we're going to have increased traffic, let's say on 15 Mile Road, that's going to wear out our infrastructure faster. So does that change the what is it, the labeling of who's
Primary versus.
primary versus secondary roading.
That's a primary road.
Sorry,
Is it already?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that's just a question of just like, what does that look
I-
like on,
Yeah,
on
that's
those
fair.
things?
That's a great question. So I mentioned 7 to 8 semis a year. We do anticipate a box truck quarterly, which would take electronics and appliances, and also a roll-off truck 8 times a year, for the scrap metal and glass. I made sure to also bring numbers as far as how many like residents we can expect. So right now, our numbers are about 132 a week. And so, we'd be interested even in seeing kind of what is traffic on that, but I personally, think it might be negligible. But those are the conversations that we should be having. I mean, that's the kind of conversations that we're happy to have with you to figure out solutions. But certainly, recognizing what impact or considering and accountable for what impact.
Do we have like a route that those box trucks and stuff would go?
I can get for you, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely work on getting that and we can share that with the board after.
So we have increased hours when you do this? Okay.
So for our increased hours, we don't anticipate, right now, what we're thinking is just expanding within a workday, maybe going as late as 6 PM. And right now, we don't intend to open on the weekends. So it would be within working hours, sort of general working hours, wanting to be available after, 5 so that people can come to us after work, but still wanting to be in daylight. That's important.
So it'd be open every day or?
I don't anticipate that. I would say on average, we'd be open between 20 and 30 hours a week. Right now, we're open 8, so about, even up to 30 would be quite an increase. Our staff right now is part-time. That would likely continue. We would, from a staffing perspective, we would need to make sure we have someone who's forklift certified, so that might change our staffing. But otherwise, keeping similar operations. For what we do. One thing I want to mention too about storage is having that much storage space for us actually allows us to ship less because we're able to just be much more efficient with how we're storing. And so then when they come, we can just kind of load it up and send it out. So even to some degree, less than where we're at now. And so there's some value there just in the facility being able to handle much more material.
So would this do away with your events then?
So, yes, partially. The ones that we would still hold household hazardous waste events because those are specialized folks who, like the vendor who does that for us are specialized, and so we don't handle household hazardous waste. But it would only be the household hazardous waste events that we still hold. We would like to hold them on the facility, like on that location, which we think might help also with ongoing operations for our drop-off facility when folks are used to coming to that location for household hazardous waste collections. On the site plan, and I have this for you, I'll give it to you, I meant to. On the site plan slide, you can see that there's 2 driveways going into the facility, so especially during events, we'll be able to use both to really try to keep folks off of 15 Mile.
Have you had inquiries from other than like Eaton Rapids and those guys about coming in and using this once it's up and running?
I would say local, like small businesses especially, yes, but all in Calhoun. That's who we've been talking to. Eaton is, that one we're in conversation with because we work with them for some of our material right now, and they're on our materials management planning board, so that's why we're aware. But like Kalamazoo has pretty sophisticated recycling options. Coldwater has a facility much like what we're talking about here. So there's some in the area where we don't necessarily think it would all regionally start coming to us. So really just trying to like understand what is the need in Calhoun and try to meet that. And the big one is small businesses, because small businesses usually can only get a dumpster for their cardboard. And then like we have some who really would like to recycle other things. Glass, plastic, styrofoam is a big one for small businesses. And so that's really, I think, where our growth potential is with small businesses and institutions or nonprofits, things like that.
Couple other questions. Lighting, is there going to be like street lights or is there, what does that kind of look like? And then also water, is it well and septic or you looking into hooking into the city? Okay.
Yeah, it's well and septic. We did, kind of as a part of our due diligence for the environmentals, we wanted to make sure that the well would be okay, it would work out there on the Foundry property. And so SME, and came out and we did, even drill a test well. So we have started that process, but it is well and septic. And then for the lights, right now, we're just thinking that we would have a couple of light poles to light the parking lot and the building itself, so further back. And that's our plan right now. And the underlit lights, where it shines down, making sure that we're meeting the expectations for zoning.
Okay. And would they be on all night or would they just during operating hour? I'm just curious, trying to understand.
Yeah, I think it would be on all night just to sort of keep the facility safe. But
Security.
yeah, security reasons.
Just another question about the site itself. So this is, as I recall, this is going to be on part of the parcel that hasn't been used by the foundry, but the foundry, I'll call it, foundation.
Yeah.
And the old dilapidated house are going to stay there, right?
Yeah, I don't know about a dilapidated house, but there is a concrete foundation. So my understanding is that has
Well, you
been.
can't see the house because you have to go down some nasty path to get there, but.
I believe that. With the concrete foundation, though, that's something that, you mentioned it, you brought it up. And so my understanding is that EPA came in and handled, some of what's happening out there and capped that concrete foundation. And so, that's a big, you kind of, once it's capped, it's now safe. It's safer for people to be around. And so, and it's also on the land bank property too. So to some degree, kind of whatever they choose to do with it. But as it stands right now, it's safer than if we were to try to uncap it. We could be looking at like millions of dollars to have a plan for that, I think, so.
Right, but I guess that was really my point, is this is a brownfield site. The EPA came in and removed materials. There's been some suspect that there's been some buried material, but they've never found any. But it'd be a great opportunity to possibly use federal or some other state funding to get rid of this eyesore and put your facility in place of that eyesore, right? So now you're gonna have a brand new building that hopefully will look pretty nice, right next to, like I said, a foundation that, I don't know, we've had people come and tell us the road department dumps asphalt on there sometimes. You got the dilapidated house that's, who knows what. It just seems odd to me that the county would choose to use the land that's unused rather than to reuse the land that's been damaged.
Yeah, I think that the remediation is a behemoth. And so for us, this is our parcel. It's separate now, for us, this is a parcel that we can work with and that we can make a great facility that works for our residents. And so we intend to move forward with that. And, Land Bank I'm sure if Land Bank had that money that they could dedicate to that facility, that would be a solution. But I just don't know how realistic that is for them.
Well, yeah, not for them. They're not gonna be able to fund something like that, but there are EPA cleanup funding. And I assume the state also has some funding for, I knew a person, that's what they did after they left consumers. They basically developed brownfield sites. So I know there's activity there. It just doesn't seem like the county somehow has decided that they're not going to tap into that, and they're going to use unused land. Again, they'll be right next to a dilapidated, industrial site.
Yeah, in my conversations with the land bank, we're excited about this use for this parcel because we do feel that this is a really appropriate use for sort of the situation that it is. It makes sense to have a recycle center there. It's not necessarily something we could do ag or residential on. And so hoping that this is a positive use for a parcel that was a foundry once. I have these presentations for you. I'll pass out. They each have my business card on them. Please feel free to reach out to me. This is an ongoing conversation as neighbors.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to and really look forward
Thank
to
you.
chatting more.
Thank you.
So are you planning to bypass our planning commission then? Is that what I heard?
You know, we're happy to have conversations and we will be coming to the township for all of our building permits. And so that is definitely the way that we will go. And so our next steps would really be an RFP for construction services, which we would hope to release early February. And so that'll be our next steps and then moving forward from there. But hoping to have conversations about this sooner even.
So any other ongoing conversations with Shelley at all at this point, or?
No. After we received that email, we never heard back. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up for public comment on listed agenda items.
Diane Kowalski, Marshall Township, since I'm the recycler in the house, and I was trying to follow your map. If you get close, I mean, you have 4 parking spots for people to park and self-sort. If you don't, you'll have 2.
Yeah.
And I appreciate how you do it now, where you have the residents sort and we just drive through and your people take it. I can't imagine the backup that's going to be when you have to get out of your car and sort. And as you know, it didn't work well before, which is why I think you switched to how you're doing it now. So why do you think that having the residents self-sort is going to be a good idea and not have the backup of cars waiting? And if you include small businesses, they're going to be there as well. So as a person who does the recycling in our house, if it's not convenient, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, that's the number one reason why people don't recycle is if it's not convenient.
Right.
And so it's on us to make sure that our operations are super smooth and that you folks are able to come and move as quickly as they do now. And so it's a lot of education. And how do we help educate people so that they still come ready to sort and ready to move quickly?
How long do you think it's going to take a person to do that? If I recycle twice a month, every other week.
Yep, we work hard on making sure our processes are smooth, and so that's something that we will definitely make sure that we're planning as a part of the planning process.
So at this point, you don't know how long, you said there are other facilities in the area that are like this. Have you spoken to them? Do people have to wait a long time? When you get out of your car, what's it going to be like how many bins? I mean, I come with 10 bags separated.
Yeah.
Because I've been educated by your people to tell me how to do that. Do I have to go to 10 different bins to put my things in?
I think these are all things that we can talk about when we're much closer to opening a facility.
Okay, so you don't know the
We
answers.
will definitely connect with you.
Hi, Rena Summers. I live on 14 Mile Road, and I just wanted to say that I'm just not interested in more industrial garbage in our neighborhood. I also don't like the light pollution that's even coming from the mega site. I think I have a right tonight, and they're talking about leaving lights on all night, talking about traffic, and they're trying to minimize the amount of heavy truck traffic, but then they keep bringing up small businesses. Well, how are the small businesses going to bring their larger loads than a personal person's loads of garbage? So are these more van trailer trucks and trailers? We've already got an uptick of traffic on Verona and 15 Mile from people trying to skirt Michigan Ave because they don't like the mega site. And you're just adding more traffic, more volume, more garbage. I didn't sign up to live in a scrapyard. And right now, living around the solar panels, it looks like a giant industrial scrapyard with the way that the sun shines off those panels. And now you're just adding more garbage and people's garbage from Eaton County. It's terrible. I don't like the idea, and I think you guys should take that into consideration that Marshall used to be a rural farm community. I live on a small family farm that I can't even expand in this area, and I'm looking to move because I don't like what's going on in this township. I don't like the secretiveness. you guys don't announce things. There's things going on that I just feel like you guys are trying to underhand and not let the community know so you guys can get this stuff, I don't know, pad your pockets, don't know. But I don't like the industrial garbage, and I don't want any more of it in my township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger?
I'm very appreciative that you guys all stayed here and didn't walk out the door. Because the people that just walked out the door don't care about the community. I recycle. Doug Rogers comes and picks up my cardboard once a week. He doesn't take it down here. He doesn't work with these ding-dongs. Excuse my language. But if you guys all read their survey wanted to know what you did with your Christmas tree, and we're gonna take care of your pumpkins. They didn't ask me how I can use up my 5-gallon plastic buckets. How can I recycle all the things that I could recycle, but it's almost impossible. And these people are coming in here and throwing that too, and I can see right now, and I understand how things work. I mean, you guys know I do. This is crazy that our county thinks they can drop something else on Marshall Township. I wanted her to stay here so I could say, what conversation did you have with Maida? What conversation did you have with Ford? Ford donated money to the schools. There's money donated to this and that. They didn't even talk to Maida. Maida could put this facility kitty corners from my house right on Michigan Avenue. Very accessible. Maida's knocked down 40 houses. We don't need increased recycling in Marshall Township because we just lost 47 houses. We lost all kinds of people. Now they think that 15 Mile Road and encumbering those poor people on 15 Mile Road that have seen gravel trucks forever. And you know what? She never said anything about a survey of how far you're going to put a recycling center. Oh, the landfill is what? 3 miles away? What? They walked out the door and we can't even ask them where their research was. They're just another one of these do as we want because and she said it, all hinges on if we can get federal money. If we don't get federal money, it'll be half the size. And I guess I've said my thing. I know you guys' hands are pretty much tied as much as the rest of us. But hopefully this is recorded and somebody will hear it. Thank you.
I think that's an important point, that we haven't really had any input into this, the county. So to your point, the industrialization, we didn't have any input. I'm not aware that they did any meetings within Marshall Township to talk about this. They talked to the land bank. They did a site selection that was pretty limited. And then they said, we're going to do it here and there's nothing you can do about it because, as she said, the county can put a building right next to your house if they wanted to, without anybody's approval. So we don't really have a say so.
It's hard too, because it's like, if you look at the area and what's zoned around it, it feels like spot zoning in the sense of there's not a lot of that around it. It's mostly agricultural. As was stated, the foundry, which was kind of an industrial use, is not even the part of the parcel that's being utilized in this way. It's the ag land, because like I said, it was split zoning. That was what the evidence said based off of all of our historical documents. So, yeah, I share your frustrations. It's hard when other municipalities throw things down and we have very little that we can do legally in some aspects. I don't want to take away. Is there more people that, did you want to, Dwayne, come up and speak?
Oh, I'll always say something.
Okay, well.
Dwayne Sly, Marshall Township. I think it's appalling that our county government would totally disregard a township's government. And she sat right here and said, we don't care about your zoning. We don't need it. We can do what we want to do. And I think that's just, it's beyond appalling. It's ridiculous. And I would hope or ask this board to construct a strongly worded letter to the county expressing our displeasure with their decision. We all pay taxes to the county, we all pay taxes to the township. For our tax dollars to be used against us is just, it's unfathomable to me. And I was really quite taken back by her cavalier attitude about, we're just gonna do this. And when you asked if we were gonna go to the PC, she didn't answer. She didn't say, well, she said, well, we're happy to talk. And then she talked about being neighbors. What kind of good neighbor is that? Like Roger, I wish she would have stayed here, but they know this is not well accepted. I went to their presentation in Newton Township last summer, and this was the exact same presentation they had there. And she said the same thing. We don't need to abide by any zoning. We can do what we want to do. And I just think that is just ridiculous. And like I said, I would hope that maybe this board would write a letter to at least to our commissioner. I'm really disappointed our commissioner isn't here. So we can make our voices known to him on the spot in person. But thank you.
Yeah, I have, and he supports this. So, and he doesn't have any good reasons, in my opinion, on why. So that's your representation at the county commissioners board. Matt Saxton.
Okay. I think everybody's commented. It's
Don't always ask me.
all right. Move on to the discussion update items, status of the zoning administrator's search and posting.
Yes, I know Joanne is not here. Dwayne may or may not know. I think I saw a note from her that said that there might have been some applications come in through, I guess it's been posted on ZipRecruiter.
Not on ZipRecruiter, it's been posted on Indeed.
Indeed.
Michigan Township Association, and I think we have 8 applicants right now, but.
Okay, so you know, so yeah, so that's great. That's a great update. Thank you.
And it runs through what, the 28th,
26.
26th?
Yep.
Somehow she did, maybe we got our wires crossed, but somehow she did say it was on ZipRecruiter.
No, we didn't go with ZipRecruiter because it was, we had 3 days free and then we had to pay for it after that.
Right, but I thought we did the 3 days. But doesn't matter. That's,
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Okay. Anything else on that? Supervise the meeting report, Kowalski.
Yeah, so I guess there's probably been 4 weekly meetings with Maida. So I'm wondering if there's anything, I think the way it was put at the last meeting is if there's anything significant, Clerk Albaugh, who attends the meetings, tells you, and then you do with it as you please. I'm just wondering, did anything come out of the last 4 weekly meetings since our last meeting?
Well, there haven't been any weekly meetings, except for last Wednesday, and nothing came out of that. They talked mostly about MDOT, which we talked about long before they talk about. But we didn't have meetings during the holidays.
Okay, FOIA status report.
So I think at their last meeting, and I think it was in the meeting minutes, we talked about having some sort of a report so we kind of knew, the board knew what was going on with FOIA requests, I guess, coming in, addressing them on time, and then closing them out.
And as soon as we have something to report, I'll report. I hesitate to say anything, but we haven't had any yet this year.
Okay, fire millage, process, timing, 10-year plan, compensation, inclusion.
Yeah, so this kind of came out of the fire board meeting, and I think it was actually wasn't this last one, but I think Ling said something about board approval in January, which would be tonight. And obviously that's not going to happen, but I'm curious, and Jeff put some information in the packet, which was very helpful, I think. But I'm trying to understand, what is our process for, I guess, number one, deciding if we want to renew it, which I assume we would, but, and it looked like there was a possibility to get it on the August ballot or the November ballot, if I was reading it correctly. And there were timings associated with that. But how is this going to work with the board, I guess, in terms of approving a movement?
Yeah, so I think it starts with, and I wish I, made copies of this, but essentially Jay put together, like I said, it's his basic apparatus and the replacement year and the estimated costs that he did for the year 2027 through 2037. And then he also did projected 2037 through 2047. And so the fire board is looking through that, making sure that makes sense with and then kind of comparing those estimated costs and looking at the millage to see, like, if we keep the millage as is, does that pay for those apparatuses to be maintained and replaced for both apparatus and equipment or gear, because there's that as well. And then if it's not, then what would that millage need to be? So looking at his 2027 through 2037 as it looks right now, we believe, I think we have to crunch some numbers, but making sure that the millage would cover that. And we think an initial renewal will probably be the best road for two reasons. One, I think getting the township to say, like, oh, we want to up your millage is a very difficult thing, And Steve Riggs came up to the podium and said, he goes, the good news is, based off of the township survey, that a majority of the people are happy. Like when you look at overall satisfaction with the fire department and interactions with them, it's an extremely high number. And when they talk about any millage, like road millages are like, ooh, like it's hard to convince people to do road millages, but the fire millage is something that people actually responded positively to. Like I think it was like 60% 60% surveyed respondents said that they would support renewing the fire millage. There was another, I think it was like 20-some% that basically said they're unsure if they would support a fire millage. So one, of survey results, people who responded, they're into that. From talking to Steve about it, when they did the initial millage, they did a lot of legwork going around and canvassing around Marshall Township to talk to residents about it. In past, when they've just done a renewal, I don't think they had to do as much legwork and people were more accepting to do that. So that's why I think the push right now is like, we'd like to keep it the same. And I just want to remind everyone, when it comes to a millage, that is the maximum amount of mills that you can take from a taxpayer. It doesn't, if you don't need it, you don't have to take that much, but it's the maximum that you can take. And so it's one of those things that's also kind of a safety net too, of just like, we'll keep it at this. If we don't need as much, maybe there's a look of like, well, we don't need to take as much from residents, and that can always look favorable as well too. But then once it passes the fire board will put it forth and approve, like, yes, this is what we are proposing to the township board. I think then the township board, if I'm correct, Jeff, then the township board would then have to sign off as well and say, yeah, we agree with this millage and kind of the presentation that goes with that as well.
Yes, usually that's the route that has been taken, and then the township board would pass a resolution of intent requesting that the attorney draft the necessary legal documents for the proposal and submission. And we have to, for the August primary, which is where the initial was done and the renewal was done, so that it didn't get lost on the November ballot. The deadline to do that is 4 p.m. on May 12th.
Okay.
So with just timing wise, then the next fire board meeting is what, April?
We actually have a special meeting on the 3rd where we're going to talk about this again.
Oh.
So we're going to approve the budget that Jay asked that we re-talk about this as well. And then the next would be April, is correct, yeah.
Okay, and then would we then look at it in the April probably board meeting then?
Our April board meeting, actually in the March meeting, it would give some direction to the attorney, do the intent.
So the only other, I guess, input I had, which I gave Jeff earlier, but was this, the capital outlay for, I guess it'd be a 10 and a 20-year period is great based on equipment, kind of, 20-year life for certain equipment and a 30-year life for tankers because we don't use them that much. But I think what would be helpful, probably almost necessary, is a spreadsheet that says, here's what we're bringing in each year. And if you want to buy a truck, if you want to buy a $1.2 million truck in 2030, are you going to have enough money? My guess is possibly not. But I think you have to do that because otherwise you have no idea whether you're going to have enough money with this millage to do what's on this sheet. So I think that's going to be critical to do. And I can, I'll be willing to help Jay if he needs the help or whoever's going to do it. But
I will also mention, Jay said at the meeting to me, because I was sitting next to him, he goes, just to let you know that these estimated costs are as if we don't get any, as if the millage itself just paid for it. It's not if we sell a vehicle and get that money back to put into it. So this would be at the most expensive, what it would be. But I agree with you, probably a spreadsheet would be helpful. Reaching out to Jay, he's the one putting these lists and stuff together.
right.
Yeah.
And we talked about it today. I think you have to compare your revenue to what you're saying you're going to spend, or otherwise you're either going to have money left over or you're going to be in debt.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Do you want to reach out to Jay, or do you want me to reach out to Jay?
What we talked about today, I'm just not sure he's comfortable that he understands that he's done that before. So he might need someone to, kind of work with him on that. But that's as far as we just talked about that.
If you could do it before, the February 3rd could, at least that would be really helpful to the fire board so that we could get that moving fast, especially if you're, I appreciate hearing that, Jeff, about, ideally, it sounds like we want it on that August ballot. That seems, like you said, there's gonna, I mean, this upcoming year there's a lot gonna be on that ballot in general, so it's, with the state constitution potential and all that. So, yeah, I would say that would be great. Glenn, if you're willing, that would be super helpful.
Moving on, motion to approve the following agenda items. Is there anything that anybody would like to have voted on separately?
I'd like to move that 5 and 6 under new business go separate.
I would add, if possible, the escrow account report maybe be pulled out as well.
Okay. So we'll go through 1, 3, 4, and 7. Vote on those and we'll go back through There's minutes of the 12/15/25 regular board meeting. They're attached. Number 3 is the checks issued list in the amount of $912,269.01. That's attached.
I do have just a couple quick questions there. So, I think we brought this up before, but essentially we're paying $513 to the city per month for the meter at Fire Station 1, whether we use any water or not. And apparently that's non-negotiable. So I think Jay said he was looking at whether he could reduce the size of the meter. And I don't know whether there'll be any room for negotiation with the city. They just basically said it's double for any non-city water services. It's double. So we're paying double. There was a consumer's bill, and it wasn't clear to me if this, I wasn't sure where Station 2 came in terms of utilities. It didn't show up on this, so I don't know if that's a separate bill. Is this just the bill that we got from consumers this month? Is that just for this building?
What, depends on what the address is on it.
Yeah, it has this address.
Then it's for this building.
Okay. So
That's for Township Hall.
Okay.
It's both, yeah, I think it's both gas and electric.
So I don't think I saw one for either of the fire stations this month, and then there's also an AT&T bill that is $269 a month for Station 2.
Right.
And I just had questions about the Total Energy Systems. I think that's the company that does our the gen set for this building.
Yes.
I tried to get a hold of them to try and understand, how often that thing starts and how often they service, but I couldn't get through. There was nobody answering it. Their phone numbers listed. So, because it looks like we had 2 bills. One was $385. And that was maintenance. And then the other one was also maintenance for $990. So I don't know. I guess I don't know why we got 2 bills.
Well, there's 2 different generators.
Okay, so they're not both for this one?
No,
Station 2.
One's for Station 2, and
One's
then
for
the
this
other
bill.
one's for this,
Okay.
right out there.
I think,
Gotcha.
but I know that Fire Station 1 also has 2 generators.
One
Or has one?
big one.
Okay. Yeah. They were talking about it was brought up at the fire board meeting about it's not on the same plan as the other one, and they're trying to, in terms of a maintenance plan, trying to get them all on the same maintenance plan versus having a different company come out.
So station 1 and 2, is that what you're talking, or all 3 of them?
I wish Jay was here. It's not better than I could.
Okay, well,
Station 2 would be on a different plan than,
The township here.
right,
Right.
right. It might be on the same one as the township hall is on,
it could be the same company though, right?
right,
Yeah,
right.
they are the same companies for here in Station 2, but I'm not aware of what company it is for Station 1.
Yeah, I think that was probably, sorry.
And then I just had, it looks like we now have a $585 bill that's gonna end up 4 times a year for the cellular monitoring system for Station 1. So this was the first bill I saw on that, so that's, that's gonna be about $2,400 a year
Right.
on that, added to what we currently pay, or what we used to pay, because the alarm system for the fire station was part of this alarm system. Yeah, and then I talked to Jay about the pump test. It was required, it's required by the state, so that's all the questions I had.
Okay, proposed budget calendar and workshop session, it's attached. And I guess I'll save number 7 for when we're,
Can I go back to the budget calendar?
yes,
Because February 9th was an arbitrary date. It can be any time that week. And I don't know about what time, but, you know, probably earlier we start, the better.
I did have a question as soon as I can find it.
So I just didn't know if how that date works with.
I think it will.
It's a Monday.
It's Monday.
It works for me.
I had one question. It was about timing, because it looked like, I can't find that page though.
The 9th, you would want to start at 6 o'clock instead of 7, or?
Yep.
If that's all right with everybody.
There's somewhere in here, there's the timing, but I can't find it. Was it after?
What are you looking for, Jay? Glenn, sorry?
I'm looking for the timeline that we were just talking about for budget,
Just add to the parks thing.
or the parks.
Yeah, it's right before the parks allocation report.
Sheet.
Okay. It had to do with the timing. It didn't look like we were gonna have the information from the board, fire board.
We're gonna meet on the 3rd.
So they're gonna meet on the 3rd.
Yeah, so we have a special meeting on the
Right,
3rd.
but it said submit additional requests at the workshop on 2/9. I didn't understand why we couldn't have it on February 5th, so we could actually look at it before the workshop.
Look at what?
The fire board?
Planning Commission and Fire Board will review their budget requests at subsequent meetings of this respective board commission and submit any additional requests for consideration at the workshop on 2/9. Why can't it be 2/5, so that we have a chance to look at it before we come together?
They could well do it. When I put that together, I didn't know about February 3rd.
Yeah.
And I didn't know when the planning commission, the planning commission meeting in February is what day?
3rd.
3rd, yeah, we could do that 5th.
That way we'd have some time to look at it before.
Yeah, that's not a problem. So that could be corrected to 2/5.
Instead of 2/9?
Yeah, well, I mean, the dates are still fine.
Right.
But under the notes, what happened is usually usually the zoning administrator and the fire chief have submitted their budget requests, then they take them to their boards and stuff, and they sometimes make adjustments, sometimes they don't, but at least we have something to start with in the budget process.
Okay.
So this would just say, planning commission and fire board, if you're gonna do anything to what your chief or your zoning administrator have already sent, then do that by, now we'll say February 5th.
Does the chairperson give that to you, Jeff, or does Steve give that? I'm just curious who gives that, the fire board?
I get it usually from the minutes or the fire chief
Okay.
for the fire board.
Because I'm doing the minutes, so I need to know.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Then I need copies of their minutes,
Okay.
in
Yeah, I mailed the,
order to pay you all. and
yeah, I actually emailed them to Bob, but I didn't, okay. It's good to know that I need to email them to.
Okay.
Now, can I also just say that I did not catch, I thought I'd written it down. Apparently I didn't. Who made the motion to approve items 1, 3, and 4?
I did.
You made the
We
motion.
didn't have a motion.
I don't think there was.
I'm gonna
I
say,
second.
I was trying to
there you
be
go.
nice.
I think I
I know
read
it's
out that
unusual.
we're gonna do that, then I
Yeah.
asked for a second.
Yeah. I'll second.
Okay.
Send this right now.
Okay. There we go.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm first. Okay, I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski.
Yes.
Trustee Woods.
Yes.
Trustee Wright.
Yes.
Supervisor Bossard.
Yes.
5 yes, no, no. No, no.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the escrow account report.
That should have really been the reports.
You'll have that in your inbox when you leave, Jeff. I just sent it to you.
So if I'm understanding, put together, what Carl said is Fire Station 1 escrow account is basically zeroed out. I didn't get a chance to talk to Jay, but I assume that's because all of the things that they were gonna do are done, and so we don't need an escrow account. But I don't know that. There was a list that they had to get done, and there was this escrow account in case they didn't do it, we would do it. And I'm making that assumption, but I didn't have a chance to ask
Just
Jay.
realized that not that escrow, that was a different escrow account, which never, I mean,
So this was-
you would be correct on
this
that.
was during
The
the
one
build?
Carl worked on is the escrow account for the planning commission, the planning and zoning,
Okay,
and the site plan review.
okay,
That's the one he was working on.
okay. So that, okay, so it's zero anyways.
That's,
And then the consumers, which I assume is the property south of A Drive.
yeah, training center, yeah.
And that's, at one point, I know this was the past board, but I know there was some question marks about plantings and fences, and I guess I'm assuming since it is at zero, that's all been resolved. But again, that's kind of a planning commission thing.
Yep.
And then NextEra, which is the solar, has a positive balance of 2454.62. I don't know how Paul Anderson knows that now, but I'm assuming that money is held by NextEra.
No,
No?
no, they sent it to us and it's held in the general account.
Okay, so we do
We
have,
draw on it.
we do have that money.
Yes.
And I don't know what the rules of that road were. Did they have to keep a certain balance until a certain time, or does anybody, what are the particulars to that account.
No, therein lies the problem we've had with this, and that is the zoning administrator administers that account, those accounts, and makes those reports. And since we haven't had an on-site zoning administrator, they haven't been done.
And does this money show up in our budget report then too?
No, it's in the general ledger. It's not as clear as we would like it if we're gonna have more of these. I think the zoning administrator used to maintain what I would call sub-ledgers on each of them and gave those reports, I would assume, to the planning commission. But the money was deposited to the general fund, and the expenses came from the general fund. There was no segregated accounts.
So if we're holding this money here, I need to be in the loop on this, as treasurer, because I'm responsible for the money in the township, so.
And I suggest you talk to the zoning administrator. Because they should be the ones they're the ones that keep those records.
But I thought you said it was in their general ledger, so they don't, I guess I'm confused. What did Paul keep versus what you kept?
The only thing I did was if expenditures came through, they got expensed from whatever line item in the planning budget. If revenue came through, it was receipted to the general fund, and then those were given to the auditors at the end of the year to do whatever they do. Paul, as zoning administrator, Sue, as zoning administrator before him, kept sub-ledgers, I would call them, of each project that had an escrow account as to the revenue deposited and the expenses that were done to it. And the reason the zoning administrator did that is it was a zoning administrator who knew whether that expenditure was related to a project or not.
And they knew that those monies resided in the general.
Yeah. And they kept it, and
Okay, that still doesn't answer my question, I guess. Yeah, as a treasurer, I need to know about all these monies, so somehow I have to be in the loop, and it sounds like, I don't know what transactions we've had, maybe we've had none since I took the oath of office, but clearly if we're holding the money, I need to be in the loop on what's going in and out. So my understanding is the company that does our zoning administration does not want to be involved in escrow accounts. So what are we going to do, like right now, as for these escrow accounts? Who's going to keep track of it?
well, first of all, the first two, there aren't any, because those projects have concluded.
Right, I'm talking about NextEra, I guess,
NextEra.
specifically, because there could be charges, so the planning commission is active with this, and Shelley is active with it. Well, Shelley's pay should be coming out of this escrow account, as far as I'm concerned. So how are we gonna manage this while we look for someone who ultimately will pick it up?
I know, I'm just very confused on escrow, so any money related to the project can be budgeted, so I'm just curious, the pay of Paul, let's say, when he was working on NextEra, he would be paid out of that account when working on NextEra, or, I'm just curious,
I know the engineering firms were, I don't know about Paul's time, I have no idea.
But in terms of contracted time, we'd have those entities, I just don't know.
Yeah, those expenses would come out of the escrow.
Well, the resolution which was attached has been provided earlier.
Okay, sorry.
I'm not an expert on it. but in looking at it, that pretty well tells what can be charged.
You talking about under our ordinance, or are you talking about the resolution?
The zoning ordinance refers to an escrow account is a very relatively short paragraph, as I recall. It says that there can be,
Yeah, so what he highlighted
there
was,
can be one, and then it has to be done by resolution. And there's a resolution 2017-4
right,
establishes the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals fees and escrow policy. And that tells what can be, how those accounts are to operate and what's to be charged and what isn't to be charged when such an account is required by the Planning Commission or the Zoning Board of Appeals.
it looks pretty broad to me. It looks, but I guess back to my question, so how are we gonna manage this escrow account while we're trying to hire a full-time zoning administrator? Is this something that Carl can pick up while we're waiting for our zoning administrator?
Says accurate, number 6 says accurate records shall be maintained by the township. Expenditures from such escrow accounts shall be subject to review by the applicant. Should the township supervisor, in consultation with the chairman of the planning commission or chairman of the zoning board of appeals, determine any of these charges payable from the escrow account are unreasonable, which decisions, I'm trying to see if it says it in here, but.
Well, I think the key sentence is accurate records shall be maintained by the township of expenditures from such escrow account and shall be subject to review by the applicant.
I would say that because we haven't been taking anything out of there, they
No,
would.
but I think I guess the reason I'm bringing this up, and the reason I think it's important is I think the planning commission is working at the solar site. Shelley is spending time. We're arguing about 700 trees that didn't get planted because somebody just dumped them out there and didn't plant them, and so they all died.
That was my question.
So-
No, that's ongoing everyday stuff. That doesn't fall under the heading of any of this fee schedule. So that I understand it.
In the resolution?
Well, the schedule of fees and charges, for the work that she's been doing for the trees, trying to solve that conundrum out there.
Yeah, but this is.
So you're saying,
I don't know that this is applicable to big projects like this. This is more applicable to, things listed, right? So, zoning board of appeals, for example.
somebody mentioned the comment, Shelley being paid out of this $2,454.62.
Right.
What's the heading she's being paid under? If this money was put in escrow to cover the schedule of fees and charges, right?
Well, I think to Jeff's point, it comes back to this resolution. I don't know that a project like the ones listed would come under the schedule of fees and charges.
Okay.
They're big projects, so
I understand. I'm just
each one of them, I think, had their own.
trying to figure out, like Wayne, just understand what the process is here. And
Well, my humble thought is that we can sit here and talk for the next 16 hours about the thing. It all comes down to what legally can we charge for, to begin with, and what's applicable. And if our fee schedule needs to be expanded, it'll have to be expanded by whatever process. But I think it, fortunately or unfortunately, goes back to the township attorney for clarifying to us, you know, what exactly, under what circumstances can can the planning commission or the zoning board of appeals require an escrow account? What expenditures can come from that, legitimately can be taken from that escrow account? And then we have to determine, as Glenn has brought up, who does it in the interim? Because clearly the zoning administrator should do that, and it's probably one of the more glaring oversights we made in the contract. And if Athens didn't want to do it, and it was brought up to him, then we probably shouldn't have contracted with them.
Well, no, I don't think it was brought up. I think this is a recent, relatively recent occurrence that, well, don't we have escrow accounts, and who is keeping track of them, and where are the records? And I think we realized that it was Paul Anderson, who hasn't been here since, what, August of 24, so, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess, again, is there something we can do in the interim to, so it sounds like we can ask the lawyers, I don't know that it needs a lawyer, but we could ask the lawyers, we have an escrow account that's been established. I guess the question is, what can we charge? It seems like that's fairly clear in the resolution, but there's a process, right? So in other words, if the planning commission says, well, Shelley worked 100 hours on NextEra Solar and we want to charge that to the escrow account, how do they do that? And who keeps track of it?
Do you think we should wait and see if we get when we get a zoning administrator hired, and then go forward with the?
I mean, that is an option, right? Like, say like, it's been sitting, we haven't done anything. I know it sounds terrible, right? We haven't done anything for the X period of time. We don't touch that account. It's not neither being drawn on or,
Right.
you know, so
I think
like.
it is, though. I think they want to draw on it, and that's the question.
And the first question is, can they legally do it?
Who wants to draw on it? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
The planning commission for the NextEra project, it's part of that process, and I thought that's what this resolution was supposed to spell out. I guess I'm not sure what the question about.
You guys want to draw from it?
I mean,
No,
it says
not that far.
planning commission subcommittees, fees of the township planner, which sounds really broad to me. I mean, almost anybody could be a township planner. Fees of a township engineer, fees of a township attorney. Well, you know, the fact that we're gonna ask the attorney about it, that could come under a fee to the escrow account.
So the problem that, and the big haunting question I have is that on every one of those, it talks about for reviewing and making recommendations concerning the application. So once the application's done and reviewed, and now you're really into enforcing, where in here does it say anything about enforcement? Usually you seek enforcement costs through whatever mechanism you're enforcing. You know, you would either ask the court or perhaps there's a statute, although I'm unaware of it, of allowing you to recoup enforcement through that process. So I don't know whether the expectation of anyone that you can take continuing costs out of it once the application has been filed, processed, and approved. I don't know that the law authorizes an escrow account for that purpose.
So what?
Perhaps it does, I don't know.
So just playing that idea, Jeff, then like, obviously they've gone through all their applications, but there's still a balance in there. So then what happens to that money, I guess, is a question.
Well, it would have to be returned. I mean,
Returned.
if
Right.
further expenses cannot be taken against it under the authorizing statute, then it would be, any excess would be refunded. which you'd hate to do. So I'd want to make sure that you went through anything that may have happened since 24 that is a legitimate legal expense that can be charged.
So, here, I will make a motion and see what happens here, because this may not be where people are hoping. But maybe we make a motion to contact our lawyers, providing them the resolution to figure out what we can continue to expense from the NextEra account, escrow account.
Okay, the only thing I would add to that, because we have run into this on a regular basis, is I think there needs to be a name attached to who is going to contact the lawyer. Because we've passed things like letters to the city, and as far as I know, they've never gone out. So somebody has to be physically contacting the lawyer.
Great question. I would offer, but I feel like I'm so far removed from it in the sense of from the planning commission side that I couldn't, I'd be playing telephone here. I'm gonna throw questions out with either Jeff or Mick or Glenn, both because you have an interest in the monies, right? Jeff, because you have in the past talked to the lawyer on matters such as this, or Mick, because you're part of the planning commission, may have a more vested interest than probably Dave or I, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking Mick's on the planning commission, and that would be a good, then they would have an understanding. Does that work for you, Mick?
I wouldn't guarantee your statement, but yeah, I'll take it on.
Okay.
You won't guarantee my statement.
It's not that I'm not willing to do it. I just feel like I'm playing telephone.
I think the problem is if you get, and then it's gotta be relayed.
Right. 100% agree.
Right. So is there any more discussion on that?
Were you able to make a motion out of that, Jeff?
I'm so sorry. I should write this
Yeah,
down.
I got one here.
Yeah, Jeff
I think that trustee Woods be authorized to contact the township attorney, inquire into what expenses are permissible to be charged under the escrow policy. I think,
Well said.
well, don't
Well
put
said.
I think on the end, but.
No, that's,
Yeah.
the intent right there. That sounded way better than I worded it.
Did I say I'd support that?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So we're ready for roll call.
Well, I wasn't done with that item. So
Okay.
apparently we have a gravel pit that we've had in the township for a long time. But it's expanded over the years and Dwayne knows quite a bit about this, but we have an ordinance, section 819, mineral extraction. And it speaks to escrow accounts, it speaks to reclamation, it speaks to a lot of items. And apparently, and this would have been back when Sue George was the zoning administrator, as I recall. She went to the gravel pit and said, hey, you gotta set up an escrow account per this ordinance. And they said, well, no, you passed the ordinance after we started our gravel pit. So we're not gonna do anything. But since then, they've bought additional properties and have expanded the gravel pit into other properties. So it seems to me, for a couple of reasons. One is, gravel pits can be either really bad things or they can be really good things. Friends of ours have property on a lake, and it now connects to an old gravel pit, and people are building, hundreds of $1,000 homes on there because it's a waterway. At the same time, you could have a gravel pit that, goes bankrupt and it's a disaster for the township. So I think, there's two facets to this. Number one, should we have some escrow account with this gravel pit? And should we be addressing the reclamation? Because I don't know where all the dirt came from for, the mega mess, but if it came from this gravel pit, they're supposed to maintain all the topsoil on the site so that when they reclaim the land, anything that's not water gets covered with topsoil. So again, it's not the board's action, but I think we've got to make, this is something that we shouldn't ignore as a township. So I don't know whether we can make a motion to ask the planning commission to look into this, if that's valid, or if this is just something we just hand over to them.
I wonder,
Board action,
would this be helpful with our next zoning administrator too? Because then they could, if we have an in-person zoning administrator, then they could spend a lot more time and resources. I feel bad for the planning commission.
well, it could start with the one we have now, just
Kelly.
investigating what's going on.
I know
And that would help.
I haven't been involved in them, but I know there have been, over the past year, there have been many discussions between the chair and the vice and Shelley on the gravel pits, but it's been one of many discussions they've had.
Right.
But that's extent of my knowledge, but I know they've had discussions.
Okay, I'm just concerned about from a township standpoint that we have this, I won't say unregulated gravel pit, but we have a gravel pit that we're not really paying attention to yet. We have a whole ordinance.
I'll put it up as a discussion item for the next PC meeting.
Okay. That sounds great.
I think definitely the next zoning administrator could spend a lot of good time on that for sure.
And the only reason I bring it up here is because it does require an escrow account. Every time they expand an acre, they're supposed to, I don't know, it's $2,000 or something into an escrow account. And then there's a whole reclamation area, so that's the reason I brought it up.
Don't we have 2 gravel pits?
Convis had one.
You got the Parker pit.
Yeah. Is that the Reese Riley pit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That's the same thing.
Reese Riley started.
Two names, one place.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. It's expanded into other properties now.
Well, it's
You can't probably really.
been there a long time.
It's been there a long time, but it's expanded.
And that went to the plan commission when they expanded.
Right.
Okay.
All right,
We gotta vote on that one.
The other motion.
Yeah.
all right.
Treasurer Kowalski,
Yes.
Trustee Woods.
Yes?
Trustee Wright,
Yes.
Supervisor Bossard.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. 5 yes, no.
Okay, proposed Parks Millage and allocation report in 2026 allocation request attached. I just had that out here.
So is there a timeline, Jeff, that they require this?
Yes,
Three.
February. Well, it's in here somewhere. February 16th. If we want an allocation, we don't have to do anything if we don't want.
February 16th?
But we don't, we have a certain amount of time after we get it before we have to,
Right, you can hold it
for 3 years.
for 3 years.
Right.
But if we take it, And let's say, I don't know, for whatever reason, we don't use it, do we give it back? Is that-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's dedicated millage.
Because, and my only comment on this is that it seems to me that before we hand over the money, it'd be nice to know what the money's used for. The last time around, it kind of, we were told what they were doing after, or the board was told what they were doing kind of after the money was handed over. And not that there, anything was done wrong, but this larger group, the Macs, you know, they have a lot of great ideas, and of course, it's owned by the high school, or by the school system, sorry. And we're giving the money, so it seems like there's an opportunity to kind of collaborate and say, okay, this is the best use of the funds, rather than just handing it over. But that's my opinion, you know, because some people would say a non-permeable parking lot at a nature center is probably not the best use of the money. You know, if you were talking to some of the people in Max, they would have liked to have seen some permeable parking lot that's a little more
And
nature.
maybe expanded the parking lot so they could get, I know that was one of the concerns of the people that were on there, because they just redid that parking lot. And if they're gonna have buses and stuff, they need to do a few different things.
Right. That could be, yeah. So anyways, that was my only comment was,
I just,
so are we voting, is the idea we're voting on the,
What you're voting on is,
put this forward to the county?
you're to request that the county allocate their, you know, the next allocation, the annual allocation of $10,496.09 to us. And that we would, is our intention to continue our work with Marshall Public Schools.
Right.
Separately, and that's not part of this, but it's related to it, is separately, we have the agreement with the schools that, and if we need to talk with them more about it, and they need to provide us something more, then we need to tell them, and they should do that before we disperse the money to them.
Right.
can I just ask a question too? So, two questions. One, would this be the same amount we'd get whether we had one park versus two parks or three parks?
Yes.
Okay.
It's prorated.
Or just in general?
Yeah.
And then if this money isn't, let's say we didn't take it, would that money then not be taken from residents, or would that go just to the counties?
It's a countywide millage. The residents would still pay it.
Just thought I'd
and it would
ask.
be retained by the county, per county, and they put it in the general county parks fund.
Gotcha. That was my question. Yeah.
So that was our philosophy at the time was, we don't want to start another park, but if we got existing parks that could be used, and somebody said, well, we got grievers and they have never recovered from that storm years ago. So.
And I tried to argue with them that our cemetery was a park, but they
They
wouldn't
don't.
go for it.
They don't look like it. They don't like that.
There's a lot parked there. right?
Well, I mean, in theory, you know, we don't use it for, you know, we're not using it as a cemetery, which is a separate discussion, except for those people that own lots, correct? If you own a lot, you get to use it, but we're not selling any more lots, so
No.
maybe part of it could be a park.
We
Well,
don't,
the reason we don't sell lots is because
we don't.
we don't know where people are.
Exactly.
I'll move with the we approve this, the proposed 2025 Parks Millage Allocation Report and allocation request for this year.
I will second that.
Trustee Woods,
Yes.
Trustee Wright.
Yes.
Supervisor Bazar.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, now we'll move on to the data center and battery energy storage resolution and ordinance temporary moratorium, and it's attached.
I'll move approval of the resolution.
I will support it. Open for discussion.
So Seth sent us something. I thought I printed it out, but so the question mark, so there's a lot of battles going on in data centers, and from at least one legal opinion, the strongest, if you don't want them, the strongest defense you have is to not put it as an allowed use in your zoning. And right now, my understanding is we do not list it as a allowable. Now, with Seth, what I understand Seth has said is that if sort of like the solar project, if a big company comes in and sees that you don't allow it, they could write an ordinance up and they could bring it in and they could say, we want you to approve this ordinance. And if we were to turn it down, they could sue, is what Seth is saying. That you're not allowing this in your area. And that becomes a question mark. It doesn't have to be in your township, but there's this general guidance that he
And there's
uses.
a secondary
in the area.
phrase that they added, and that it was in the general area. So that can, what's considered a general area.
So the statute says a zoning ordinance or zoning decision shall not have the effect of totally prohibiting the establishment of a land use within a local unit of government in the presence of a demonstrated need for that land use within either that local unit of government or the surrounding area within the state, unless a location within the local unit of government does not exist where the use may be appropriately located or the use unlawful. So I guess what he's finally said is that the moratorium basically is a moratorium, probably usually 6 months. You can extend them, I guess. But you could come back with, we're not going to do anything, or you could come back with an ordinance that addresses data centers. And it could be things like, we allow data centers, but we want them in this area. I don't know. So
Next to the river.
Right, yeah. So anyways, yeah, so I guess it's a good idea, but what I have been told is, like in Saline right now, there's a big fight going on. And their best defense at this point is the fact that it's not an allowed usage. So if whatever that company is, the giant company that wants to build the biggest data center in Michigan, if they sue them, then, that'll be because they're prohibiting that use in that region of the state, I guess.
Exclusionary zoning.
Right.
They could also go to the MPSC.
No, not for data centers. That's power and storage.
Okay.
Anything
That's
over
storage on the,
50 megawatts of wind, solar, battery storage. So anyways, I guess I support the idea of the moratorium, I guess, because it gives us more time to think about it.
Yes.
The only thing I have is
See
like,
where the loopholes are.
I also am for it in the sense of like, it gives us a buffer zone. My only worry is having a buffer zone helps if you're actively working on coming up with a solution to it. And so my only worry is we don't have a zoning administrator yet.
Right.
And so would it be more advantageous of us to, once we select it, then, because I don't, the likeliness of one of these things coming in right now, I don't know how, I mean, maybe I'm.
No, they're popping up.
They're popping up like pimples all over Michigan, I get it. But it's one of those things I wonder, like, would it be better strategically to get closer to when we're starting to get a candidate for being a zoning administrator that could work hand in hand with our law firm to make sure that we have it? Or would that just give them too small of time to be able to come up with something?
It might give us a good reason to extend the moratorium.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
okay.
because we didn't
Just
have
kinda
it.
hide,
Yeah. we just-
Okay, well then, that you sold me a little on that one.
There's an
So,
alternate way to go too. I was reading up on it. You could go for a year moratorium. But if you ever get to court, the courts look kind of down on any moratoriums lasting over a year. You need to have something in place, which is what the moratorium time is for, is what they're thinking is to put something in place, not to dilly-dally around, say, come back and say no after 12 months. The court will slap you on your knuckles for that one.
and I don't think
But you don't necessarily have to adopt an ordinance. The outcome could be, well, we're just gonna leave it the way it is what Seth is saying. It's just, it gives you time and protection to think through.
We won't be forced into something.
Right.
I understand having that umbrella, that, okay, we got that insurance for whatever length of time, 6 to 12 months. I don't like that we're putting it out there that, hey, we got an ordinance, you guys come see how it fits for you to put something in here, which is what it's they end up being.
But I'd rather have something where we have some controls on that make, I'll be careful how I word it, but make it that it's like, is it really worth doing here or not? Because we've thought about it versus getting bypassed and then we have nothing. I mean, I feel like in some aspects, like, can we be proactive in a way that protects us enough that maybe another community looks more
Well, that's the whole impetus behind doing a moratorium, is looking at the pros and cons and how it fits with your master plan, future land use and all that. You take this, pass it off to the planning commission, and it's up to them to
I mean, they're
press
working
on
on,
with it, then bring their results back to the board and say, this is where we think people want us to go.
And I know that Rob Paul, I think he's making some presentation up in Traverse City in March, I think, on data centers. So I know there's lots of communities working on this now, and hopefully he's tapping into that. But I also know some people that are working on the Saline project, so maybe he can tap into that as well to see how that is going, because it's hot and heavy.
and I mean, not to say, I mean, the political climate can change, in November, but that would also give us, a good amount of time before then to see if it, maybe it's, I know certain candidates are out there that are speaking very heavily against them, or at least a lot of subsidies that they're currently getting for these things that would.
Do they get subsidies?
Data centers are heavily subsidized. I don't know if it's by state, but it's federal.
Yeah.
Probably more federal.
Are
than
they really?
state.
I didn't know that.
Heavily.
I know the battery storage and solar and wind are, but I didn't know the data center.
Yeah, they had that big fight, the legislature, a couple of years ago for up in Kent County.
Okay. We ready for a roll call vote?
Okay. Trustee Wright,
I'll say yes.
Supervisor Bazard,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski,
Yes.
and Trustee Woods.
Yes.
5 yes.
You can always vote.
All right. It's good cover for now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Is there any other matters that may be properly brought before the board by a board member?
I have one. So the resolution 13-2007, which was included in, I think, Ada's brief to the court. It says, whereas the Joint Planning Commission is an advisory body to both the Marshall City and Marshall Township Planning Commissions, which doesn't make any sense because that's not what it is. Whereas the current master plans for each community do not reflect the potential for development inside of I-69, I-94, herein referred to as the growth boundary based upon the potential for use of 425 agreements. And whereas the city may not complete a new master plan within the next 18 months, then now therefore be it resolved that the Joint Planning Commission hereby requests the township planning consultant to undertake an amendment to the township's master plan for the growth boundary areas and then present such to the Joint Planning Commission, City Planning Commission, and Township Planning Commissions for their approval with the estimated $2,000 costs to be shared equally by the city and township. I have no idea whether this was ever done. I would like to make a motion, and I don't know how you do this because I've never been through it, but I'd like to make a motion that we rescind this resolution, basically because the first paragraph doesn't even make any sense relative to our 425 agreement. The Joint Planning Commission has nothing to do with either the Marshall Planning Commission or the City Planning Commission. So I don't know, is that how we get rid of resolutions? How do we get
Never
rid of
heard of it.
resolutions?
Never heard of such a thing.
Well,
I've heard of passing a resolution clarifying, and somebody's gonna question that, saying, well, that's that board and that's this board, so how can they clarify what a prior board did?
right.
And so how can you undo what a prior board did if it's legal?
How can you undo it? So you're saying that we can't undo any resolution that's been passed by
Well,
any
you could
previous
pass,
board?
you could pass a current resolution, referencing it and amending it.
Okay. Okay, I understand. So, okay. So
What year was that?
how do I,
What year was that?
2007.
2007?
That's right after,
Well, I think if you want to do something, maybe you should talk to somebody, make sure we,
Word it properly?
yeah.
Right. So that's where I was gonna head. So I could make a motion that I guess I could do it, talk to our law firm about drafting a resolution that references this one, but brings it in line with our amicus brief.
I'll support that. Any discussion?
Well, I think that's my job to ask that.
I'm sorry. I didn't know, sorry.
I've been thinking,
We're getting,
I mean, I just want to make sure if we're going to do something like this, that it's the right thing to do. And I guess before we decide, maybe we should talk to the attorney and then bring it back to the board. is my thoughts.
Well, that's what the motion was, right?
Yeah, it was just simply to get the
I mean,
attorney.
if they thought it was a bad idea, I'm sure they would tell us. But what is your, maybe what, just to better understand, what is your concern?
Well, I don't want us to get into a position where we've done something that, we're gonna have problems down the road on something we voted on.
And I would hate to see in a legal brief
That's-
that, what they did by this resolution, maybe a resolution comes out is the facts didn't fit the argument, so now we're gonna change the facts to fit the argument. I mean, which people in Washington and Lansing do all the time, but whether it's right or lawful, it's quite another thing.
So what a good question before enacting the motion, going with the motion, would it be best just to ask the question of, I guess, Rob, because it's connected, is what is the process for amending a resolution?
Well, I wonder if it's relevant, though. I mean, like, in the sense of, like, is that resolution even relevant in the sense of, like, it's referencing things that don't even happen, right? Like, that resolution, as you read it, says, the Joint Planning Commission is advisory for both the city and the township
Planning commission.
planning
You
commission.
don't do anything with it.
Yeah, there's no connection between the planning commissions. And so it's like, if it's a mute, like it does, it does nothing.
valid?
That's not how the master agreement even reads. It has nothing to do with planning commissions like that.
Is it valid?
So like, it may not even be a valid resolution that we're trying to fix. So maybe there's a question too of like, is it even worth like, I don't know, just to like.
Is it still valid? And if it is, how do you get rid of it?
Well, it was a specific action
Yeah.
that I don't know that it ever happened or not. I don't know if anybody even knows. I mean, we couldn't find this thing, right? Somehow Mr. Lindsay found it while we were looking for it. So I don't even know how that happened, but it showed up and made his brief. That's how I got a copy. So, but I don't know. So again, I think our legal people can help us resolve that. Maybe they say, well, just leave it as it is because it's worthless anyways, and they're done. Or they might say, no, it'd be a good idea to do thus and so. So that would be the thought process. Because this is used in a legal brief to the court in a lawsuit saying, that the planning, basically the argument is that the planning commission doesn't have the sole authority for land usage, which is exactly what the agreement says. And they're using this as an appendix, so.
I guess the one other question, Glenn, is maybe like bringing this up and trying to make an action on it, does it kind of validate it to make it seem like it's becoming something that's like if we think it, just hypothetically, we're like, this doesn't even reference anything that actually happens. But by us trying to take action on it, does it then look like it has some validity that?
Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the
Well,
answer.
have you talked to Rob, discussed this one with Rob at all?
Nope.
Okay, so
Maybe just,
some new point for him.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Other
I
than-
mean, he saw it in the brief. I mean, he looked at Maida's brief and he looked at the city's brief before he created his amicus brief. So he's aware of it, but he hasn't.
Maybe a motion's not needed, but maybe just.
I was just asking, what's the viability of this?
Okay, that's fine. So I can retract my motion.
Okay. So I think we've been through everything.
Yeah, I just, if I could say one last thing, sorry, I forgot to mention something during the fire board agenda that I think is kind of important for this board to know. It was brought up that Canvas Township, we have an agreement. We talked about that in this meeting already. The Canvas Township has met with the fire chief and the assistant fire chief to go over the plans for the battery facility and what that looks like from an emergency standpoint. Supposedly, there's going to be like 40 storage containers that are essentially these batteries that are self-contained. And they have each container has its own fire suppression system that uses some chemical agents to deploy if a fire were to break out in any of these things. Supposedly, we can ask more about this with Jay when he's here, but because we asked a lot of questions, the role of our firefighters would be mostly to make sure that, while it's all meant to stay within, these contained containers, like if there are other buildings that could potentially get harmed, they would be there to help make sure that if the fire were to spread or something, they would prevent that or helping evacuating people if in the surrounding area, if something went on.
And pouring water on it.
Yeah, I don't
From a
think,
distance, they're not allowed on the property, but
Yeah.
from a distance, I think the emergency plan says pour water on it.
yeah. All I know is I asked them a bunch of questions about, do their fire material, do your suits, can they handle the chemicals that are in those systems? And they're like, yes, our fire suppression gear. But also they said Canvas would, one, train our firefighters in those emergency response systems and what to do in those situations. They would pay for the training. And if there's any gear that our township firefighters would need, they would pay for that. So that's something to keep in mind. It is a concern to me in the area that while they're like, oh no, we'll never escape these boxes, but all the actions are about if they escape the boxes, and there's very little to know about what happens to those chemical agents when they go into the ground or what have you. But they're designed not to do that. But it may be worthwhile to see if we can't get them to talk more about that and how we can help inform and protect our residents, especially in that area. But that was something that came up in that meeting that I thought, residents need to know about this and what that plan is.
So I'm actually glad you brought this up. So this is at that intersection of 4 townships, right? So you got Canvas, you have Penfield to the west, you got Emmett to the southwest, and you got Marshall Township to the south. And I know the Marshall Township, and I think we heard from, wasn't the one fellow from Penfield, expressed concerns about property values and, if you do pour a bunch of water on it, where does that water go that's contaminated? And, so I don't know, we've individually, some of us have gone to the meeting and given opinions, but does the board have any opinion on the Marshall Township residents that are on this, right across the street from this BESS, battery energy storage system? Because they're very concerned, I know that.
Yeah, it is a good question.
Is there enough interest that we would write a letter to Canvas in support of them? Or
and like I said, I think that there needs to be more information given to our residents, especially in that area that, they need to know what's going on and if they need to have a bin, to be, if they're in the evacuation zone area, I don't even know where is that evacuation zone, how far is that evacuation zone area? And
I think that was in the information. So I FOIA'd Canvas Township for all the records that they weren't giving to the public. And I got them and I made them available on OneDrive to all the people I knew were interested. But I think, and they talked about in that meeting that there would be an emergency, that they can get it down to phone numbers of residents, on an automated basis. And I think it was within a certain range. I don't know if it was a mile or it was something like that, but.
It just would be good to be able to let people know, like if I was in that zone, I'd want to know. If I have to like quick on a dime, I'm gonna have to leave my house and grab, like to have that emergency bin would be something I'd just want to have on.
I just feel bad that people
Yeah.
who moved into a rural spot are all of a sudden looking at solar panels and a lithium battery storage facility.
Yeah.
And they're talking about no screening on the south side, so I haven't actually been up there physically, but I don't know what the screening is to the site from the south. But if it's not adequate, people are going to be looking at this thing as another eyesore, similar to the solar and actually the gravel pits. They've been dealing with a lot in Convis.
What I could do is I could ask Jay, like, who's in the affected, if I could see a map of it, I think that would be important. But maybe there's something we can look at a future board meeting, either both where Jay could provide some sort of like, what can we provide to our residents to give those people in those areas? And then two, yeah, like maybe something we could, like, how do we send that to those people just so that they're informed of what's going on? Because I don't know, we could also contact Canvas to see, like, are you contacting the people that are gonna be butt up against it, so.
Yeah, and we don't know for sure it's gonna pass either.
So it's pending,
Their next meeting, I think they're gonna vote on it, and, my suggestion to them is don't, and let them go to the state. Let them work with the state, what harm does that really do? You lose some control, but what control do you have anyways?
Control comes liability.
yeah, sure.
And their Thomas's next meeting on this is at their planning meeting, January 26th,
Right,
7:00. So that email just came out a
Right.
while ago. So.
right.
Is that next Monday?
What day you said?
January 26th.
It's Thursday, isn't it? Is it Monday?
Yeah, Monday.
Today's the 20th.
Yeah.
20th.
If there's 7 days. All right. Any public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Camera.
Not that type of comment.
Marshall Township. For full transparency and clarity, I want to state that I did not ask Glenn permission to speak, nor is he aware of what I'm going to say. I think for myself. I posted my opinion on Facebook page, What's Happening in Marshall, Michigan, on December 17th, 2025. And as a result, several comments were made that need to be addressed. Number one, I would like to state publicly to those in this room and anyone watching on YouTube now or in the future, that when I choose to post on Facebook, the words you read are my own thoughts and opinions. The facts included are accurate to the best of my knowledge at the time of posting. Glenn does not post anything using my name. We are two separate individuals, each capable of forming and expressing our own opinions. There are individuals, and you know who you are, who claim that Glenn is a coward, hiding behind my name. Neither of us is a coward, and neither of us hides behind anyone else. Number two, one person even compared Glenn to the Wizard of Oz, suggesting that he is a man behind a curtain who should be disregarded. Nothing could be further from the truth. Glenn does not hide behind any curtain. What you see is exactly what you get. Full transparency 100% of the time. Number three, one person commented, we may be city folk, but we ain't stupid. This statement misses the point entirely. Intelligence and good judgment aren't measured by where someone lives or how they talk. The real issue is whether the facts are right and the argument makes sense, not throwing out stereotypes and hoping they substitute for substance. Number four, I was accused of contributing to the fountain fools. Frankly, I don't even know what the phrase means and what are fountain fools. Let me state clearly and publicly that I have the utmost respect for the dedicated individuals who choose to peacefully protest at the fountain twice a week for something they strongly believe is harming and will continue to harm our beloved community. Number 5, Glenn has been accused of having no integrity. Key aspects of integrity are honesty and truthfulness, being truthful in words and actions, consistency, acting in alignment with your principles and values across different situations, accountability, taking ownership of your actions, admitting mistakes, and making amends, moral courage, having the strength to do what's right even when it's difficult or unpopular, ethical behavior, adhering to high standards of fairness, justice, and respect for others. Keeping these key points in mind, I'll let the audience decide who lacks integrity. Number 6, for the record, once again, Glenn has no role or involvement in the Committee for Marshall, the Megasites lawsuit against the city and Maida. He is neither a member of the committee nor a plaintiff in the action. His support of the committee is limited to volunteer service and financial contributions consistent with many other supporters. Number 7, allegations have been made asserting conflict of interest based on Glenn's position as Township Treasurer and my status as a plaintiff in the lawsuit. Definition: a conflict of interest exists only where an individual's personal, financial, or other private interests compromise the individual's ability to perform official duties in an objective, fair, and impartial manner. Glenn derives no personal or financial benefit from the committee's lawsuit. Accordingly, no conflict of interest exists, period. Number 8, it has further been suggested that Glenn is attempting to transfer the financial burden of the litigation from the committee to the township under the pretext of protecting the township residents. Through its supporters, the committee is paying their attorney fees and has full confidence that support will continue as the number of supporters continues to grow. Glenn is one of 5 township board members, therefore he does not have any magical power to shift any financial burden. Number 9, another person claims, quote, Glenn, is supposedly an elected representative of all Marshall Township residents. Glenn wouldn't dare post these opinions, end quote, is yet another ridiculous statement. These opinions in the post are mine. Glenn's posts reflect his thoughts and opinions. And yes, he does represent all Marshall Township residents, but he's smart enough to understand that there are many, many different views among the voters. He listens to all of them. The good news is that the voters who were once ignored are no longer being ignored. And number 10, one last Facebook comment that I want to address. Someone said that Glenn has learned that bitching, quote unquote, bitching is easy, governing is hard. The points I've shared this evening certainly support the bitching is easy part. The comments in my Facebook post prove that bitching is easy. Glenn, however, has learned a lot about how governing actually works. It's a slow, tedious process that takes real dedication to navigate. The 3 newest board members ran on transparency and a promise to listen, and that's exactly what they're doing. Personal attacks don't help. They only cause harm. They reveal far more about the character of the person using them than the person they are aimed at. When conversations sink to personal attacks, most people stop listening. This should be about adults acting like adults, listening, sharing ideas respectfully, and being willing to compromise so that we can move forward.
Okay. Any board member comments?
Tired. I'm tired, so I'll only take just a couple minutes.
Okay.
And that is, it has been my privilege to serve the citizens of this township since 1992, actually. Deputy treasurer for 4 years and then elected treasurer in 1996. And for some unknown reason became clerk, other than the township had a vacancy and it needed to be filled. And so I took that position. I was elected to that position in 1994. I find that that there's more to life than just 33 plus years serving at the township. And it's with mixed feelings that I announce that my last day as clerk will be February 28th. And I'll be submitting my resignation I hate to call it that after 33 years and you call it a resignation, but that's,
Retirement.
it's a retirement without any retirement benefits if effective on February 28th. That, and the reason that I'm doing it at that time is I've carefully thought about this. That will give whoever this board appoints as the new clerk the time that they're going to need to become an accredited clerk by the State Bureau of Elections to conduct the elections in August that we know of, that definitely will occur in August and November. There's a lot of work to getting that accreditation, and you have to have that accreditation or somebody else will run the elections and build the township accordingly. So that'll give plenty of time for that person, whoever they are, to be able to do it. In the meantime, I'll be continuing training with my new deputy, and I wish the board good luck in the future. And that will be that.
I'll say thank you for your service.
What was the date
February 28th,
of 2026?
after this year, yep.
Thank you for your service.
Well, it's overall been interesting. A lot of things have happened over the years. And that's another factor that weighed in, is that by counting those 33 years and looking at the calendar, I discovered that I'm actually 76. And time to let someone younger come in, hopefully, and give their ideas.
I want to thank you for what you've done, what you've meant to the township. You've guided us along for the past year, kicking and screaming at times, but
Not too much screaming.
Appreciate
hope.
your knowledge and helping us do what it is that we need to do while we sit up here and represent the township.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the help getting started as a treasurer, because you did it so long. It was like second nature to you, so it was a big help for me getting off the ground. Appreciate that.
He's kept me straight in the meetings.
So I'm assuming if you haven't, you're gonna give us a note of some sort, or?
Yes. Yeah, I meant to have that.
And we have to vote on accepting or not accepting, right?
Well, yeah.